Good evening and welcome to the February 13th, 2025 meeting of the Holliston School Committee. We are meeting remotely tonight, so I'll just quickly, we're meeting, hybrid tonight, so I'll just read the remote meeting statement. Quickly, pursuant to the Governor's July 16th, 2022 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 30A paragraph 20, the Holliston School Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the town's webpage as soon as possible in accordance with keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. At this time, we'll take a roll call of attendance. Frank?
Here.
Hillary?
Here.
Joe?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
Cynthia?
Here.
Dan, I'm here. And Dawn?
Yes.
So we are now in hybrid mode. It's like beast mode, but hybrid. We'll run through the consent agenda quickly. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Then we'll have to do a roll call vote. Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dan, I'm a yes. Dawn?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, we have a report from our student representatives.
So spring registration for sports is now open. The class of 2025 is selling carnations as a fundraiser. The parents of the class of 2025 are holding a Bertucci's fundraiser and also selling tumblers. And they also held a CrossFit fundraiser for the senior boat cruise.
DECA State's competition is in Boston Seaport, and it's coming up at the end of February. It's on the 27th and the 28th. NHS juniors will be helping out at the Holliston High School open house. This is on Wednesday, the 26th. Girls basketball senior night is tomorrow against Norwood. Boys basketball senior night and ski senior night were earlier this week. And girls ski team won senior night and also the TBL.
Okay. Great, thank you. Next, we'll go to school committee individual comment.
Nothing. No comment.
No comment.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Dawn? Okay, I have one quick thing that I'm going to cover under here is this. Dr. Kuska, Don, and I hope some people from the town work with Travis on coming up with an agreement for a memorandum of agreement between us and the select board for facilities management. And I guess the select board wanted it to be an agreement between the select board and the school committee rather than like the town administrator and the superintendent. And so we have two options. Either it's in your folder. I can either just sign it if there are no objections to my signing that, or I can put it on our agenda for next time. We can kind of vote on it, and it can be from the committee. I just presented, it's basically just kind of an agreement that we'll continue to work with James Keaston. He'll work with us, but that it'll all go through Dr. Kuska and Dr. Jordan. And
Is that in our folder?
it's the Town of Holliston facilities.
Maybe it's the Via Moore.
I would recommend we review and.
Yeah, I think we should review it. It's not showing up in my folder for some reason. Gifts. If I can do it again. All right. It's okay. I'll go through the whole thing again.
I know he just wanted to get it sort of done and settled before he left, and I know the 27th is still before he leaves, but...
Is there anything that has changed about the agreement?
This is really just more memorializing sort of how we've been doing it. There's nothing earth-shattering, I would say. But it's up to everyone.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't look any different than the former one.
Right.
Well, I think James Case has been very supportive and helpful in
Yeah.
the last couple of years.
No, the only question is
Working out.
whether we want to have this as an official item, vote on it next time, because it didn't,
Did we vote on it the last time? I feel like we did.
So we didn't have, you're thinking of DPW, we haven't had a specific agreement.
Oh, you're right, that was like at the
It's been
grounds
just a
thing. I'm
very-
conflating the two.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the grounds.
and there was
Okay.
there was technically a budget impact on that one, because we
Yes,
had a
there was,
we had a
'cause we were sharing.
0.25.
Yeah, okay.
There is no
Yep.
budget impact on this.
Yeah.
And I think that there were a lot of big projects that James helped
Yeah.
with recently.
Yes.
But moving forward, I think with the new staff in place too, Matt is doing, Rumshaw's doing a great job. New maintenance people, we feel like we should be not taxing him
Right.
as much as we did in that past year, just because of the projects we were doing.
So do people, I mean, I can put it on the agenda for the 27th, and we can vote on it then. It's really,
Yeah, we'll support next meeting.
okay. Make that an official agenda item for the next meeting. All right, we now have public comments, and we have a few. Ms. Rivera.
Hi, good evening. I know most of you know me, but my name is Amanda Rivera. I'm a longtime chemistry teacher here at Holliston High School. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. My understanding is that later this evening you will be discussing and potentially voting on implementing an AB schedule for next year. It was stated in a past communication that an AB schedule would be only a slight adjustment to current practice. While on paper it may appear slight, as the day-to-day schedule would in fact remain the same, to students and teachers, an AB schedule is actually quite a significant change. At no time during the past few weeks during the feasibility study were teachers or departments asked about the impact to curriculum, classroom logistics, or cost implications that this schedule would have. And I believe that the committee and the community should hear from teachers on these topics. With regard to curriculum and continuity of learning, while an AB schedule does technically provide for year-long learning, the implication is that every other week, teachers and students would meet only 2 times. With the numerous holidays and 4-day weeks on the calendar, there could be multiple weeks in a term where classes only meet twice per week. As an educator, I have serious concerns about my students' ability to learn, practice, and master new material with so few class meetings in a row. Additionally, implementing an AB schedule takes students from managing 4 classes at a time to a total of 8 classes at a time. I encourage you to have conversations with students about their thoughts on managing 8 courses concurrently. I can assure you that the change, while perhaps feasible, is in fact quite significant for them. Lastly, with regard to the 3-term AP courses, an AB schedule would mean approximately 20 fewer class meetings before students have to take their AP exam. While the class would continue to run after the exam, teachers would have to increase summer work, speed up content delivery, and cut labs in order to get through the required content prior to testing. With regard to classroom logistics, any schedule change that requires all courses running concurrently, even on alternating days, is going to run into significant space challenges, specifically for the science, wellness, and art departments. Many labs and projects span multiple days, with lab bench space at a premium. Science teachers already have to share rooms extensively. One of our teachers teaches every class that she has in a different classroom, lugging equipment, biological specimens, and chemicals around on a cart all day. Double that, and surely the lab curriculum will have to be modified or reduced in order to accommodate all sections safely running at once. The most significant impact would be to our woodshop program. We do not have the space to store the wood and projects for all construction tech and tiny house classes to run at once. To do so would require purchasing or renting a temperature-controlled storage unit or a mobile classroom. Which leads me to my final topic, cost. When I have raised questions about cost with regard to any of the potential schedule changes, I have been assured that, quote, the school committee is committed to covering the cost associated with any schedule change. While I absolutely appreciate that sentiment, I find it hard to believe that any and all costs will be covered when those costs have not yet been laid out. I have spoken with my department and put together a rough estimate of the additional budget needed to run all just science courses on an alternating AB schedule. Again, while it may not seem like alternating days is not concurrent, because of our classroom logistics, multi-day labs, and current level of equipment sharing and textbook turnover between semesters, there's actually quite a significant impact here. I welcome any members of the committee to visit the department for an eyes-on tour of the classrooms and equipment that we stretch to the limit on the current semester schedule, or to see the specific equipment listing behind this estimate. Additional chemistry equipment, $10,282. Additional physics equipment, $12,732. Additional biology equipment, $6,000. Additional environmental science equipment, $3,500. Additional textbooks, $20,000. That total estimate, without a storage unit or mobile classroom that I would assume would have to go to a bid, is $52,514. Again, teachers are not opposed to a schedule change or adjustment. The teachers on the scheduling committee have put forward multiple schedules that minimize the impacts I have listed above. We care really deeply about our students and their learning experience in our classrooms. And to that end, we ask that any potential change be rigorously and transparently vetted. Thank you.
Thank you. While I don't want to speak to the numbers, I will just simply say that one of the assurances from the recommended schedule by the schedule subcommittee included the purchase of the additional supplies that were going to be necessary. So there's nothing really changing from that to this one. I think that sounds like a very high number, but there certainly, we recognize there will be some additional costs. Former school committee member, an esteemed esteemed member of the community, Amanda Bigelow.
Thank you, Dan. I'm Amanda Bigelow, 122 Briarcliff Lane. I have a 7th grader at the middle school, and I'm here tonight to talk about my favorite topic, math. I am a career high school math teacher, for those of you that don't know. I've been a department head, curriculum writer, consultant, taught high school, college. Majority of my career was teaching high school in the Boston Public Schools and the Framingham Public Schools, where I currently teach. I also do tutor a fair amount here in Holliston, and I did used to be on this school committee until this past May. So not to brag, but I do consider myself an expert on this topic. It was the March 14th meeting of 2024, I believe, where it was I who made the motion to add a full Algebra 1 curriculum to 8th grade to begin in the fall of 2025. So the next school year. And at that time, I think we were pretty clear that we did not mean that this Algebra 1 course would necessarily be for all students, but would be more an honors math. And the reason being, for me, I think the biggest issue with de-leveling the 8th grade and having this for all students is the equity piece. So as we all know, equity does not necessarily mean the same for all students. Insert the graphic of like the people looking over the fence here, right? And I'm very, very concerned about the equity issues that would be created with de-leveling 8th grade. So let me explain. So without an option of like an honors math curriculum, as we know, and Joni, I know you did research on this, many, many families in town do utilize programs like Russian School of Math, Kumon, private expensive tutors like myself, so that essentially without us offering honors math in the public schools, only those families who can afford to pay these very, very high prices would be allowing their kids to have access to this, you know, high-level math curriculum. So I don't think I need to explain why this is a huge, huge equity issue, not only for that 8th grade curriculum, but also for those students would be the only ones who are more likely to be accepted into honors classes at the high school level, assuming those will remain. So it's essentially privatizing honors math here in town, which, you know, this is a public school system. Doesn't make any sense. Talking about the honors kids, but also I've taught, you know, every level for years and years and years, including, you know, the CP2 lower level classes. And I really feel that de-leveling is unfair to those students. I've heard talk about like, oh, the stigma of being in a low level. I don't hear that very much in my experience, and again, this is like my daily life every day. But I do hear a lot of students in these levels being like, oh, I really feel smart in this class. Like, math anxiety is huge. We all know for students, we want everyone to be able to feel comfortable in their math class, comfortable to talk, to share a problem, to ask questions, and I fear that that would really go away in these mixed classes in 8th grade. So I know that one of the answers, sort of, that's been thrown out as a solution to these issues is differentiation. There's been lots of talk about differentiating instruction. It's great, especially it looks great on paper, but the amount of planning it takes to properly differentiate in a public school class to all the levels that we at Holliston teach for teachers, there's literally not enough hours in the day. And I don't mean the contract day, I mean like the 24-hour calendar day to properly plan all of the extra work that it would do to properly differentiate to every single level. And with respect to everyone who thinks otherwise, I don't think you've spent enough time teaching public school, middle school, or high school math if you think that that's not the case. So that's all I want to say. I really hope that these levels are maintained in order to keep Holliston a competitive district, to be able to properly suit the needs of all of our students at all levels, to keep Holliston math equitable among all students, and to avoid more students leaving the district. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Catone.
Good evening. Jamie Catone, 199 Mill Street. Tonight, the school committee will hear the feasibility of a potential new high school schedule, referred to as the AB schedule. And the school committee has a potential vote on this schedule listed on its agenda. A move to an AB schedule is a major change that would have students taking 8 courses at once, doubling their current course load of 4. A few weeks ago, when the school committee voted on a different schedule, there was no analysis of the impact of the schedules on students, teachers, or the budget, no public discussion weighing the costs and benefits of the schedule, and no opportunity for the public to provide input after hearing a public discussion. The AB schedule that is being considered tonight, along with the previously voted on schedule, has students taking 8 courses at once. In a survey by the high school schedule subcommittee, parents and students were overwhelmingly clear that they believe it is not in the best interest of their students to take 8 courses at once, citing challenges due to learning disabilities, emotional and mental well-being, time constraints due to working necessary after-school jobs, and being able to balance a rigorous course load, just to name a few. A decision to move to a schedule with 8 courses at once is in complete opposition to the feedback from parents and students. Teachers voted the last schedule down for many reasons and agreed with parents and students that 8 courses at once would create more hardship for students. To help facilitate the feasibility study, the union suggested to Mr. Liss that he meet with each department to gain an understanding of how our students would be impacted by the AB schedule from the perspective of our teachers. This never happened. How can we answer questions such as, how much will this cost for supplies? Do we have enough classrooms? What is the impact of running these courses at the same time? How will our most vulnerable students be impacted by this change? This leads me to believe that any report on this schedule tonight has been done without a thorough examination of the implications it presents. Voting on a new high school without incorporating feedback from teachers, parents, and students seems to be irresponsible and unwise to me. Is there some other driving force behind this change? Are we all here to serve the community? Yet here we are ignoring the community's input. And why is the schedule being put forward outside of the schedule subcommittee? As parents of students in the school, myself, a parent in the school, a parent of students in the schools, a taxpayer, and a voter, I asked the school committee to improve their transparency by holding a public forum that includes a presentation of the pros and cons of any new schedule so that the community can be informed, can participate, and have advance notice for such forum. For those looking for any more information, a document comparing this schedule to others has been posted on the Holliston Teachers Facebook page. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ann?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Ann Canoni, Holliston, Holliston High School, 1135 Highland Street. And as many of you know, I've been here a few times talking about this similar topic, and I'm back tonight because after the last time I was at the meeting, I had asked if the math curriculum review report had ever been presented to the school community, to the school committee and to the community. I looked back, I couldn't see that it was, so I'm not sure if that report was ever presented. So I asked that if it hasn't, that it is presented, because when we think about that, we had at least 13 math experts across the district who, I think like Amanda said, if you haven't been teaching in a public math classroom the way we have in a district this size, we don't have all the resources as other big communities have. It's really important that you hear from the math teachers, and I think we all talk, right? We all know what's happening. We're all talking across the district, and this is how lack of transparency doesn't create a good environment, and I think that that's one thing that is honestly happening because we're all hearing bits and pieces. So I encourage you to request that you invite the math curriculum review representatives back to send out that report. I went through and I looked through I've been reviewing the report, and I just want to read some pieces from the mission statement or the vision of the math curriculum review. And I think that this is really important because we spent, I think, at least 4 meetings going over this vision, but just a piece of it, our shared vision. It says, by focusing on the current Massachusetts mathematics curriculum frameworks, we will promote consistent and effective vertical alignment pre-K to 12, which provide the foundation for rigorous higher order learning opportunities for all students. And then it goes on to say, central to this work is regular, collaborative, data-informed decisions amongst all educators. That is not happening. We haven't met again. And when I've been hearing all these bits and pieces from the math study coming forward, and to not have that stuff be vetted through the math curriculum review committee, it's concerning to me because I feel like we're just Band-Aiding something. We're just Band-Aiding, and I think we want to be thoughtful if we make changes to this, because as Hillary said a couple meetings ago, that we're being asked to do so much, and it's just like people saying that within that 24/7, like I work and work and work. I just don't stop, and it's just not fair to continue with that. I do think that Cambridge, I'm not sure if you follow Cambridge, but Cambridge has been having this debate for many, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, I think it's been going on. And they were supposed to do it, I think, this year, and they delayed it, and they've been getting pushback for delaying it. But what they've done is they've come up with a math academy for 8th graders to take during the school year, and it's a really thoughtful program. So I'm not saying like we can't change these things, but we really have to be careful when we do it. And I really want to, ask that any changes that are proposed or made to the math curriculum, that it does get vetted through the math curriculum review. I do think there's one more thing I want to say is when I left industry, I was a 401k consultant, so I did work 10 years in industry, so I have that experience and I know what it takes to have a job outside of a school. My first paper that I had to do, I went to Framingham State to start. I got my degree at Lesley, but I started. And my first paper was on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And I think when you see students who feel good about themselves and they feel great, they have that intrinsic motivation and they work together and they want to learn. But when, like Amanda was saying, is that you put these kids together and they just don't feel good about themselves and they develop more anxiety, and I think we have to be really careful about that. So I thank you, and I encourage you to get a copy of the report and look through it because it's really good and there's a lot of great work that we did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Tracy?
evening. Tracy Flecker, 96 Rolling Meadow Drive, teacher and mom of 5. Thank you for letting me speak again tonight on the topic of the high school schedule change. At this point, with the information that has been made public, I fully appreciate that the school committee has taken steps to continue this process of change to the high school schedule. Thank you. I also applaud Mr. Bilodeau for standing up to the bullying, both during the initial process and now. Speaking the truth is always right, although not often easy. I wanted to speak tonight as a reminder that the issue, regardless of who said what, when, how, throughout this entire subcommittee process and the legal battle, the issue remains the same. The current high school schedule needs to change. Let's give our students the credit they deserve. They can handle 8 classes. If the state has overwhelmingly gotten rid of block scheduling, Holliston can handle the change as well. The current schedule leaves large gaps in content continuity for all of our students. We pride ourselves on French immersion, but then have students at the high school level go at times a year without direct language instruction. We complain that our state rankings are dropping, but don't question how going 2 semesters without academic content in a subject area has an impact on that. Our AP scores aren't as high as we'd like, but some students are ending classes 4 to 6 weeks before they take a test. And our extensions on AP exams are just Band-Aids, and many students are not able to take those with this current block schedule. We've read our equity report, but we don't stop to correct the inequities for students that are clearly presented. I've been an educator for 20 years and a parent for 14. Both jobs require a constant requirement to change, and it is hard. Our job as educators is to provide an equal education to all students. Our job as parents is to support that work in equity, even when it may not pertain to or directly affect our own children. Some of the accusations that have been thrown around about which students we should be listening to and prioritizing during all of this debate on schedule, aside from being awful, are missing the big picture. We have a moral and legal obligation to educate all of the students in Holliston. I think it's great that we are looking at ways to have AP courses continue for a full year, but why are we also not prioritizing our special needs students who have never had the opportunity to take a music class? Kids getting extra support with this block schedule do not have the same access to things that might be their passions one day, career path, or what's keeping them in school. The ADA and IDEA require schools to provide reasonable accommodations to ensure that students with learning differences and on IEPs have equal access to educational opportunities. Our current schedule is in direct conflict with those. There is no equal access. Some, definitely not all, but some students and teachers are hesitant to embrace a new schedule because they perceive things will be harder for them. Our role, though, in equal access means we create a schedule that allows for equal access. It's our job as the adults to make decisions based on what is right for all of our Holliston students. The high school students in Holliston, regardless of what classes they take or how they learn individually in a classroom, will benefit from a change to the current schedule to one that allows content instruction for an entire academic year and more equal access to educational opportunities. Thank you, members of the school committee, principal list, and the many high school educators and community members who are fighting for a change that places value on the education of all of our Holliston students.
Interesting. I think I got to everyone. Okay. Moving forward, we'll go to the fiscal year 26 budget, superintendent's budget presentation.
I can't wait to present. All right, let me just get my screen up. Okay, and Dr. Jordan and I have worked quite a bit together on this presentation, so he'll be jumping in as well as we move forward. Okay, so similar to last year, I'm presenting some of the information that's going to be in the next few slides, the rationale for why we're proposing the budget that we are, budget history and some of the comps that we do in the area around us, what a level services budget looks like, and then what's the town projected budget and any deficit that we might need to make up. Our priority needs request that we had presented, a modified version of tonight, will be presenting from the version that we presented in January, and then capital request as well. So again, similar to last year, the rationale for the budget for tonight is really we're continuing the work that we started with our 5-year strategic plan, 22 to 27, where I've tried to each year not just present a 1-year look ahead, but try to look and estimate more than 1 year. We're now going to be in year 4 of that strategic plan, so next year we might be starting the process of thinking about planning for a new strategic plan after 2027. Again, that's year 4 of our priority needs process as well. Our transportation and tuition impact for FY26 budget are still quite uncertain. We talked last year about the significant increases we're seeing with transportation and tuition out of district, so those are always uncertain and growing. Our personnel increases with our level service budget or whatever budget we move forward with. And we are still experiencing challenges at the town level, so we are also trying to meet what the town is able to afford. And all of this has been taken into consideration as we move forward. So Dr. Jordan presented the various districts that are part of our Accept and Tech, the 2 collaboratives that we are part of. So I'll let you just kind of look at that. While we, last year when we presented this, I believe we were the bottom for per pupil cost. We have moved up slightly, but still we are very close to the bottom for how much we are spending per pupil versus the districts surrounding us. What does the tuition and transportation increases mean? And then we are talking about how circuit breaker impacts those tuition increases and transportation. So each year we're looking at spending that money the following year. We put in our tuition and transportation, and we get a partial reimbursement depending on the year. Most years we get tuition reimbursement up to 75% if it's fully funded. We'll still wait to hear for this year whether it will be fully funded. Transportation for FY24 was at 44%, and we carry over that money that we get reimbursed from FY24 to the current year. And then legislation and new guidance, I just put some links into there. So for Chapter 71B, Section 5A, and school finance regulations, if you had questions about just circuit breaker and the impact on school budgets. So some people are, and many people are probably not familiar with the term level services means. It truly is defined as taking the current year's level of services and projecting that same level of services forward 1 year. The level service budget is necessary in order to maintain the current level of services at HPS. Just in simple terms, the number of personnel that we have currently this year, the classes that we have this year. Now, that doesn't mean it would be identical because we always tweak based on needs of students, but the number of classes that we offer, the number of staff that we have, and all of that expenses related to all of that is a level service budget. So if you look at our budget for FY26 based on the things that David presented in our Part 1, 2, and 3, and I did include, there's a link there. In each slide there are some links as well. This is what David presented for our 3 parts to that budget. So if you wanted to look back at that document, you may do so. So if you look at the costs that we're projecting, as David shared in the past, the salaries that we're looking at estimating for next year based on our current level of staffing would be a 4.93% increase for next year. Other fixed costs, which is technology and other items. David, you want to just mention a few of the items that are in other fixed costs?
Yeah, that is where everything but payroll and special education costs are. So this would be all of our curriculum, instruction materials, utilities, maintenance costs are incorporated into our other fixed costs.
So while that's $140,000, it doesn't seem significant. It's a 2.62% increase to the overall fixed costs that would be for FY26. Special ed costs, as you know, we had significant increases unforeseen last year, as did many communities. We looked at the 14% increase that was allowed at the state level, did create some significant increases last year, and the transportation costs were staggering. last year, and if you recall, the town did give us a one-time $750,000 offset to help us manage that, which we greatly appreciated. And by looking at our out-of-district placements, our tuition, our transportation costs from this current year and last year, we're really trying to do our best to bring that number down. So most districts are still looking at significant increases percentage-wise in the upcoming budgets. We are actually projecting right now a negative 0.26% increase, which I think is phenomenal and really reflects the work that our special education team and our student services administrators and director have done this year to try to keep students in district, and also our staff that works on transportation to try to get lower prices and get locked in those prices. So when we presented in May, there was a hope that we'd be able to bring tuition costs down more, depending on who we could either keep in the district or return to the district, if it's best interest of the students. That number was hopeful, very optimistic, but we are pleased to see that we are trying to bring that number down to a negative number to offset any deficits for FY26. So the final level services budget for next year would be $44,784,400, and that would be a 4.21% increase for FY26.
To clarify one thing, just if you're looking at, and I apologize, the top is FY25 appropriation. That is minus the $750,000. That would be just a good comparison of percentages.
I did have Ms. Beatty include some slides, because we did this last year as well. I think the date is last year's date at the top, but she did update some of our numbers for this year. So as a reference, you can see the number of students we had on IEPs for FY22 to FY25 as of currently, number of 504 students, number of ELL students, and then out-of-district placement. So if you can see, I think the biggest thing here is that our out-of-district numbers have gone down, but when the numbers have gone down, the individual costs have increased. So that's why, even though our numbers are going down, which is great, and we're keeping more kids in district, the tuition increases have been more than expected over time.
Were those move-outs from the town or brought back in district?
Sometimes it's coming back to the district, or sometimes it's a student that has aged out as well.
Okay. Just thinking about future years, how to think through that.
Yep. And then she did put in some information as well for the sped budget increases. Some of that I've already talked about, the tuition and program restructuring increases, just the complex students that we're seeing, and those complex services that they need are coming at a higher cost. Increases to, she talks about the substantial increases in the gas. All of those things, have transpired that even though we were hopeful to even bring the special ed costs down, the fact that we're able to bring it down at all this year is significant. And then she did provide some other considerations and mitigations that you can look into as well. And Jess would be happy to speak to this further. She'll be coming back to do a presentation later in the year as well.
I don't think this is in our folder. Could you?
It's linked to the document.
So we only have access? Okay.
But I can pop it in the later.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
I'll pop those in separately. Okay, let me keep moving on. All right, so with that, if you look at where we are with the town of Holliston and then the school budget, as we have in the past, the town administrator, soon the title hasn't specifically changed yet. Has it changed
The
officially?
law's passed, but
I don't know if it's official, but town administrator / manager. The current town manager has a 3.25% increase as a placeholder for HPS. Obviously, all of this has to be voted on at the town meeting. This number isn't guaranteed, but that is the number that he has modeled for us at this time. That would lead to a 0.96% deficit for the level services budget to meet the numbers that we shared with you already. And that is a $414,594 deficit, and that usually translates to positions, because you saw our other costs we're trying to keep down at a minimum. So unfortunately, that would impact staffing if we had to go that route. It also, that significant number still doesn't include any of the priority needs that I'm going to present next. So all of these things were in our priority needs discussion when the principals joined us a few weeks back. So I have them all listed here, like we did in the past, under the arches. So under Arch 1, the cybersecurity we talked about would be for data privacy at a $10,000 cost. The town is absorbing $4,000. It's something we're working on together. And then Arch 2, REM's Dean of Students was presented, and I'm not going to go into all of the needs there, but I know that Principal Manning did share a document with you trying to share some of the reasons why, and she talked about the night that we met, that there really is just the change in students and the needs of our students, and this is what she really feels would benefit our students the most. And at the high school, they're looking for a tutor to offset some of the work that we've been trying to do with, actually the other tutor should be there as well, isn't it?
You have the third tutor up in Arch 2.
Oh, yes, it could have been under teaching and learning, but we put it in both, right. So the high school, looking for some of the changes and interventions that we're doing, looking for $25,000 for an additional tutor at the high school. The current nurse staffing ratios at the high school, we have a full-time nurse, and then we have a .4 long-term sub-nurse, which comes 2 days a week. We really feel like we need continuity 5 days a week, so we'd like to bring that up to 1.5, which would be to get us to 1.5 and staff it with the, as a permanent position, that would be about $37,000 additional. And then under Arch 3 for teaching and learning, our principals at Placentino and Miller both talked about the significant increase in our multilingual learners and the need for more ELL teachers. And both of them are recommending, because we're not really meeting the number of hours in any way, shape, or form. We've presented in the past about the significant increase of students moving into the district. So they would both want to add a .5 to really try to get closer to compliance for the needs of our ELL population. And then Miller did request, because again, OT needs for our students, occupational therapy. We're seeing many more evaluations for our students at the Miller age level. And so just to keep ahead with evaluations, to add a .2 to the current .8 model. We also have a part-time person that does, that's a coda that cannot do evaluations but can service students, but they work under the license of the occupational therapist. At RAMS, we really want to increase our program offerings because we have created the basis program at the high school. We've done it at Miller as well, and we see the same students moving up to middle school and the same programmatical needs to keep our students, again, in district. Long term, we think it's more cost effective if we add that position at $75,000. We do need a way to support these students that are moving into the RAMS population. And RAMS also talked about the need for tutor. We're going to talk later about some of the things we talked about with math already in the last few weeks. But as we create needs and changes to our math programs and adding more resources, our whole new math program at all levels, and trying to really meet the needs of all learners, to at least add one tutor at about approximately $25,000 at RAMS would help us with the intervention model that we've already put in place, that Carla, as our STEM interventionist, is working on during RAMS block. We really need more staff to do that work. And then we've talked for many years about the needs to try to enhance and grow our performing arts program at the high school with the limitations that we do have, and as we've talked about with the scheduling. But having a .75 position at the high school for music has been challenging. So to get .25 and make it a full-time position so we don't have the turnover that we've seen would be ideal and help us expand that program, particularly if we do change the schedule and now have more students, which I would hope would grow the program and require that need anyhow at approximately $15,000. And then Arch 4, this has been a need that we have talked about for many, many years, and we continue to Band-Aid and come up with the best solutions we can. But we really wanted to go back to the model of having full-time custodians at our buildings. We currently have one full-time custodian at the Miller Placentino campus. We use a vendor for custodial services at our other buildings, but we really feel like if we had our own full-time staff within the budget, we would be able to maximize the services that they're able to give us, but it would cost us a little bit more initially to get those services in place. So where does that go? And I did, the priority needs and costs are in there as well, the booklet that we presented last time. But what does this mean? Those level services would, to get all of these priority needs, is about $446,000. And then that is a total of $45,230,400, which makes our 4.21% level service projection go up to 5.25%, which is clearly significant when we're modeling at the town that we might be able to manage at 3.25%. So if approved, but we didn't have this appropriated at the town level, this would result in further reductions, and that could be approximately 6 to 10 positions that I certainly can't support a reduction in staff of that nature. However, I do see that we still have priority needs that we need to really consider, because we really do need to reach compliance for our students, and we have, in my opinion, a moral obligation to service the students that are coming into our district, especially as that number has increased and we're trying to manage with the same number of staff. It clearly, more coming in and not adding more staff clearly has maxed out the system beyond the ability to give them what they need. And that's why I am still requesting that we consider adding the .5 ELL teacher at Placentino and a .5 at Miller. And then I do think, again, getting back to compliance and special education, is it something that is compliance and a legal obligation as well as a moral obligation to service our students? So I am requesting that we consider somehow coming up with the $75,000 for the special ed bridge program. I said basis earlier, I meant to say bridge, I apologize for that. And then the math tutor, again, with all of the changes to math, to be able to provide more intervention support to our students and help support our staff with those interventions. I would like to see more than one, but one minimally, at least for next year to start. And the same at the high school, again, with all potential changes that are happening and trying to increase rigor and supports for students, adding that one tutor. And the total cost of those items that I'm hoping to somehow figure out a way to fund would be $199,000, which would get our number that I presented on the last slide down to 4.68%, but clearly still a significant number to offset with a 3.25% model. I did note on the bottom, well, I do think the nursing is certainly a need. Because we're funding it as a long-term sub currently through grant-funded and money that we are able to get, I would still manage somehow to do that at least for one more year as an LTS as a .5. However, I would be coming back to you next year to try to get that to be a permanent position at the high school. David, do you want to talk about capital requests?
Yeah, so these are items that we've discussed a little bit within our budget subcommittee meeting, but this is one as far as the Ramsden High School Wi-Fi upgrade. We're at kind of this essential point. This also has a rebate associated with it, about a $33,000 rebate that's associated with it as well. The high school auditorium lighting, this has been sitting on the request for a long period of time. We've worked to get down a quote that was above $200,000 to a quote that was to a $130,000 to an essential quote down to about $99,000, or estimate down to $99,000. The essential need is really the dimmer panel that's on there, and it is we're on borrowed time with it, and when that fails, that kind of fails our entire lighting system. So I think we're kind of at a point, while there are things that are more, it's always kind of bumping this down the road as far as the most essential item. It might be the time to kind of move in that direction. It was one of the questions as far as its association with our potential high school project, redoing the project. This is a mobile lighting system, so if we were to move into a different high school, we could transition this lighting system to that space. Critical exterior doors. This is, I'm looking for the truly critical doors that need to be replaced across the district with the intention of applying to the MSBA, which I'll talk about later down the road, but the MSBA in a future year for some identified exterior doors, because that is considered part of the accelerated repair program. Our exterior doors and windows are included in that as well, but this will allow us to kind of get our critical doors there. Then finally, this is just kind of part of a conversation would be the Rams roof part 2. That's worth discussing here at the school committee and what you all decide to do. I think the intention of the town meeting this past fall, that where the 1.25 of the total 2.5 cost was given to the district for the Rams roof to address the most critical areas, and waiting for the MSBA roof approval. We did not get it this past year, but we're applying again this next year. I'm placing it here. If it were given, if we did do if we did go forward with it as a town capital request, that would make us not eligible for the MSBA piece, but it puts it at a lower total cost if we were to do the entirety of the work during the summer. But that would take us out of the running if we were to find out for the fall for the other 1.25. That said, it's just put it here, just put that out there so that's information for you all to kind of consider at the cost savings that might be of putting the whole project together or not.
So before we take questions, I do want to remind people of the process a little bit. Obviously, there's no expectation that anyone would vote on these numbers tonight. While it is, the town wants our numbers to make determinations, the earlier you vote on budgets and move forward in the year with needs unknown and uncertain as students enter or leave, or things do change quite a bit in education in a short amount of time. So the later we are able to get through this process and to have more known certain numbers for some of our costs associated, and also looking at retirements and all of the other things that do take place. We are hearing of some more potential retirements that are taking place this year that are still in the works. So again, when we do get staff exiting and enjoying their next chapter of their lives, we look at that as a way to try to get some favorability, which can offset some of these needs as well. So again, our goal is not to say that we're expecting you to vote numbers that we talked about, but however, these are true needs. If we do want to keep a level services staff that we have, plus the needs that we talked about tonight. But I'm also realistic to know that that's not going to happen until we are going to keep crunching and meeting, and as more information comes in and the costs get tightened up as we go, we'll come back to you with hopefully a better scenario. But regardless, it's not going to happen at 3.25% with those needs right now. But we hope to get closer to that number as we move forward.
Our numbers are a little bit more accurate than they were a month ago, and will be more accurate a month from now. And as Dr. Kutzkus indicated, we do have news of a couple of more retirements, so there's favorability there. But also, it could be a month down the road, and we find out something different that sends us the other direction as well. So it's we just hopefully we can just kind of dial in each month that goes by.
And then the other thing is, when we did priority needs, we did put projected enrollments for next year based on the students that are in our district right now moving up. And as we talked about last year, we are seeing some enrollment decreases, specifically right now at the lower campuses. And those students will continue to move through the system, so we have to adjust every year, regardless of what the budget is. It's set. We look at enrollment to see what needs are. We shift staff as needed, and we also look at how many classrooms we'll need as a result of the enrollment in each grade level. So that also could be an opportunity to minimize this number as well.
Right. So just piggybacking on some of the things you said, just so people understand that the town has 4 levels of the budget process, and the first is the department request. The second is the town administrator, not town manager's recommended budget. The third is the select board recommended budget, and then the final is the finance committee's recommendation to town meeting. For the first budget, most departments use either something that goes through the department head or the board that oversees it for those departments that have boards. But the schools have been given a little bit of special dispensation given that we have a significantly larger budget, so we've been given a little bit extra time. I think department budgets were due end of January or something like that. But because it still takes us longer we've kind of come to the agreement that the superintendent's initial budget will sort of stand in for our level 1 budget, and then as we refine it through the process, that will sort of take over, but the initial cut and what will be shown to town meeting and to everyone as the initial.
That's not unique to this year, that's historic.
No.
That's been the last, since Travis was here, basically. Yeah.
I will say
My
we,
budget is the most variable.
And we did ask Dr. Kuska to move up her presentation. She had initially planned on this being 2 weeks from now, but Travis had asked for him by the 14th, and so thank you for accommodating that. Dave, just one quick thing. Our numbers are always accurate. We're just getting, we're just getting to refine them.
the numbers we give you are accurate, but as we get more information, we're able to get them.
And as town manager, I mean, Travis has always put in like
Words matter.
a placeholder for our budget, which is nice to have something to shoot for, even if we disagree with it and want it to be more like 4.5. Is he paying attention?
And I
Anyway. He's going to be like, yeah, I don't think so.
But one thing I just
He
want
said it like 5 million times.
One thing I would like to just point out to the community, though, if you go to page 7, because I think this is important, because we talked a lot about these numbers during the override process, and it's just coincidentally come out that the gap right now is still about the same as with the gap that we were talking about during the override, but the reasons for it are very different. And we discussed that was a risk during the override. So during when we were presenting the numbers for the override, and I know Dr. Jordan, we're working on the exact comparison, so I'm not going to give specific numbers, but we were expecting a lot more quote unquote savings from the special education costs, because that is a net number with cost. With more, we had expected more pupils to be out, and then reimbursements to offset them. So we expected that to be a more negative net number. But what we are seeing, what we were expecting, what we talked about during the override, was some favorability in the other areas, and we have seen that. It's just that's been offset by, some unfavorability in placements and greater than expected cost increases still flowing
The
through.
way to, because looking at this chart, it looks like, hey, special ed is actually the most favorable. I think what you're saying is they're looking at the percent change. Those are not growing actually as fast as we expected them to. They're below what we expect them to grow, while the negative number isn't as large a negative as we expected.
Correct.
Okay.
As we were hoping.
Yep, as we were hoping.
Well, again, I think
Planning, budgeting.
Well, as from a ground-up basis, looking, I mean, we weren't involved in it because we don't get involved in student-level decisions, but as the ground-up level, I think that there some things happened that we were not expecting, and then there were some, like last year, out-of-district placement costs, had the 14% increase that really sort of hit everybody. There have been some additional similar or larger size cost increases that flow through this year that were, not expected.
I think kind of using Dan's words, I think that the numbers that were used to calculate May, they were accurate at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Numbers that were used to calculate January are accurate at this time, and you go from a month or two from now, we might be at a different number.
More accurate,
In part,
accurate, but accurate, updated.
yeah, and part of the issue is that if we're looking at a child that's in a current program and we were modeling or expecting potentially another 14%, and some of those actually, even though the state was saying 14% is that high end of the number, there were some
24%.
some were 35%, 37%. So that's not common knowledge, and we didn't realize that. We thought the cap was the cap, but then when people had unforeseen circumstances themselves, they could then petition and have that also through that way.
Last spring, like all districts prepped for that 14% increase, and then this year, despite the cap at the 14%, we saw some who received the waiver that we were hit pretty hard by that went up, as Dr. Kuska said, 33%, 22%, that Jess had presented in her presentation.
Yeah, and you'll see, because you can see the out-of-district numbers have dropped, and and I have to say, again, kudos to our team, and that's, again, why it's so important as we build that basis program up and continue that model, because that model has been effective, keeping students in district with their peers, and that's why I think that's a really important position for our
I think it'd be helpful for the community, because I look at this and I'm like, salaries not the most, obviously just looking at the raw facts. could we put in the percent change we expected at the beginning of the year?
We're going to do a comparison to what the budget that projections that we
So
presented.
if we were projected, it says 4.63, right?
9.3.
9.3. If we expected it to be 5.2 and it's lower than that, we're favorable.
Well, the 4.2 is approximately what we had projected for the override. It's just that the composition of those parts is different.
Yeah, but it would be good.
Right.
We voted on the salaries, the town voted on the salaries.
Right.
And right now, that is, if I look at the increase of change, that's the culprit.
So what we look, again, that's level services. So we
Yep.
look at the current staff we have. When we were budgeting last year going into this year, we looked at the staff that we had in front of us at the end of the year, and we moved those salaries forward, and that gives us our budget for this year. And then we take, right now, we look at the staff that we currently have in front of us. We apply the steps, the estimate of steps and lane change, well, steps we know, if it's the current staff. Lane changes, we have an estimate on that, because we already know a number of people have put in for lane changes as well. And then the COLA is applied as well. So based on the staffing that we have in front of us right now, that is what it would cost for the increase for next year. Again, this is where I talked about favorability. As things change in retirements, again, that number hopefully will be reduced based on those changes, and we use that to offset
Where we see,
in the budget process.
not just retirements, but you get staff that may leave to go to a different district, and then you either hire in a different staff member at a different rate, or you end up consolidating or restructuring based off of like that staff member leaving.
I think in salary, those details are extremely important, because if you take a simplistic view, next year's COLA is 3%. We're looking at 4.93. I know there's a lot of things in there, but we need to spell that out, I think.
It's a 3%, but also 1,500 on top step.
Exactly.
So that's not a 3%.
So if we spell that out, though, just so that it's clear, because myself included, read percentages, I'm like, that's way off. That's almost double of what, 80% more than I expected it to be.
Yeah, because that's
So-
only the COLA, and then
Exactly.
people going on steps and
Yep.
lanes are baked into
But I
that.
think Community O is like, instead of just posting this slide, we need to explain that.
But just steps and lanes is generally about $500,000.
Well, perfect. Put that in there, right? So we give context of where that number comes from.
Be on a different, we can put a link somewhere.
Well, yeah. Okay, so so this is the budget subcommittee will continue to meet. We'll work on refining this over the next few weeks. Don, I don't remember, we were planning on I think getting this budget subcommittee recommended budget by mid-March, early March.
Mid-March, I think.
Was it mid-March?
Early March.
Yeah, so more to come on this, but obviously work to be done. Any more questions?
Do we usually vote on it before we have the public forum on the budget? I think we vote on it the meeting before,
Right, and then we have the public hearing.
right, which has to be the first week of
April,
April.
yeah.
That has to be posted for, what is it, 45 days?
Before town meeting.
Is that what it is?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what the posting is, but we always
Last year,
do
Inquiry
it.
and Keith just told me that it was taken care of.
We have the, I'll look at it after we have the meeting schedules, and I have the date in there somewhere.
Yeah, so if you have it in there, but we should be fine.
Look in the, to the bottom. In today's.
Well, not that our budget will be fine, but we'll be prepared to vote on
Okay.
it, I guess.
Thank you. And, okay, we've got a few policies. Oh,
We have- really don't. We have one.
Rescinding,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
this is good.
I know, right?
We're doging this stuff.
Stop, don't. We were doging nothing. Okay, so we have one revision that I wanted to discuss, which is the immunization of students. And the three other ones are to rescind policies that our nurse manager is recommending that we rescind because they're either covered elsewhere or they are no longer, They are no longer in the policy manual. They're not in MASC's guidance policy anymore, so they're obsolete, essentially. So we're just trying to like clear those out. And they are usually covered under something else. For example, the one on HIV is covered under communicable diseases, so it's not, it's not its own separate entity. And the issues around overdosing and opioids they discuss in JLCD, which is about medications. So, anyway, so we have the revision of JLCB, and I'm just going to read the changes, which are in red. No student shall attend a Holliston Public School preschool, elementary school, or secondary school program without a licensed healthcare provider's certificate attesting to immunization against communicable diseases in accordance with current Massachusetts Department of Public Health MDPH required immunization schedules. The only exception to these requirements will be made on written receipt by a licensed healthcare provider that immunization would not be in the best interest of the student or by the student's parent, guardian. I don't have to say the rest of it. Religious beliefs, etc. Okay, and then below, just a minor change from saying no child, we said to no student. We also substitute back in, it used to say like doctor, and now they say licensed healthcare provider. Same, in accordance with current MDPH required immunization schedule. Let's see, student has been put in for child. That's really all that's really changed. It's pretty non-substantial other than that. If the district physician in charge of school health program does not agree with the opinion of the student's licensed healthcare provider, the matter will be referred to MDPH, whose decision will be final. Okay, and the last is such writing shall be submitted at the beginning of each school year to the student's school nurse. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Nope.
Okay, again, Brenda Barton reviewed this over with Dr. Zisblatt and her team.
Okay. So would you like a motion to approve the revision?
Please.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the revision to JLCB, immunization of students.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I am a yes.
Okay, thanks. And then the others are to rescind. I guess we have to rescind each one separately.
Okay.
Do you have questions about the rescinding of
Do we no
any of
longer
these
have life-threatening
individual-
allergies?
We do not.
Okay, good.
And like I said, JLCE is now covered under medications where there's a mention of that the nurse has to keep naloxone. Is that right? I didn't say that right. Narcan.
Narcan, yeah.
And then the JLCA, GBCG, whatever, HIV is rescinded because it's now covered under communicable diseases. We treat everything, anything bloodborne is all covered under that. Doesn't have to have its own separate. So
Okay.
I think we have to rescind them separately, I think.
Any questions about rescinding these three? And we'll do three different votes. I guess just
Yeah, just to be
cover
clear.
it?
Yeah.
Is there anything, do you want to add something?
No, it wasn't specific to that,
Okay.
so I apologize.
No worries. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to rescind JLTA, life-threatening allergies.
So moved.
Second.
Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Entertain a motion now to rescind JLCE. School nurse and management potential life-threatening opioid overdose.
So moved.
Second.
Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Finally, entertain a motion to rescind JLCAA dash or two
It's a dash.
dash GBGCA
I know. I don't
HIV
make them. I don't know what.
WXYZ.
Joe? Or Hillary?
What?
Joe was slow on that one.
Who made the motion?
Hillary.
Okay, who seconded it?
Second.
Okay, Frank,
Yes.
Hillary, Joe,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right, so that brings us through policies, and I just realized, and I apologize, Mr. List is waiting here, so why don't we,
I know.
why don't we take him and,
Taken him before
and then
me.
we should have.
He's loving this.
I
I
apologize.
know, but we'll
I looked up when I started talking.
You know, I usually think of that, and I didn't think.
I was looking right at him like
I
I
know.
should have just stopped
Sorry,
talking.
Mr. List.
Ms. Rose, would you please come, I'm not going to ask you if you'd like to, but would you please come up to the gallows and,
Oh, boy.
While he's getting settled, 4-3 is the public hearing, April
Okay.
3rd.
and so we'll just triple check. 45 days sounds long, but
You know what, that's not my expertise.
Okay.
I'll have to think, I have to look at that. I always left it up to Pete, so I'll leave it up to David to check.
all right, well, thank you for joining us.
Always my favorite place to be on a Thursday night.
It's the only place to be on a Thursday night. Unless there's an important game going on or something. All right, so you are here to present to us our requested feasibility work on a potential A-B schedule.
Thank you. So just wanted to share a short presentation. We can go to the second slide. Oh, I don't know, is it up there? So this is just the request that was made, was about would this schedule be able to allow classes to run for, our current schedule be able to have classes run year long. And you may recall that I presented last year similarly to a schedule like this. And what you can see in slide 3 is what that looks like for the times. The reason the times are different from our current times now is because this is the additional 15 minutes added. What you will see in this is in order to make it even, it's an actually additional 16 minutes added and a time minute taken from passing of another period. But otherwise, when you look at the schedules, you see the current schedule and then the A-B day schedule, and they both align. With times, it just has the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the B day 5, 6, 7, 8. We currently, if you go to slide 4, we currently have a rotating schedule. That means that our first day is A. Right now, our second day is B, third day is C. So you would see that up there as days 1, A1, A2, A3, and A4. And as you can see for the B days, so it basically just takes the second half of your classes and puts them every other. In order to give you a visual of what this looks like in a schedule, because I know like this rainbow of colors are very confusing there. What you would see in the next slide is a
The purple, though.
is a sample schedule. Again, the sample schedule here there's lots of different iterations. Every student has a different schedule, but I just wanted to give you some schedules just to have an understanding of what this looks like. Currently our students do A day in the first half of the year. That's why it says terms 1 and 2 or semester 1. And currently B day would be semester 2, but in this schedule, they run every other day. So in this schedule here, you have English, like that first day's English, science, world language, and elective, and then your next day would be math, social studies, PE, and then another elective. But again, there's so many iterations of that. If you go to the next schedule, this shows, I guess what you would say is basically could be constituted as basically like a freshman or a sophomore schedule that has math meeting every day. And so what you'll see here is this is a iteration of our schedule that it is the exact same as our schedule. So the students in that math class take math every day instead of every other day. So I know it's kind of confusing, but that's how it's an iteration of our current schedule. And as you can see, as the school committee asked, the classes run, is it feasible to run year long? And so you'll see there the feasibility of UC Science in both terms. That's how you know that it's running all year. So to answer that question about that feasibility of year long, when you see it both places. And if you go to the next slide, this is how AP looks in our current schedule. And what you'll see here, our AP classes right now run, which one? Sorry, yeah, I was on my wrong one on my slide there. The current schedule, our AP runs 3 terms, so that has to fit within the year long. So again, if you think about it, term 1, day 1, you're seeing your AP Science. Well, that extra term that it has fits on that B day. So for one semester, you have Science every day, and then the second semester you have Science one day. And so it is an exact replica of our current schedule, just with, if you were to splice it up and put the other classes in, you would have the AB day. So I guess to answer the question, is it feasible? Yes, you can take our schedule and run the classes year long.
And those APs, when you say AP Science or AP Math, it's like the same math. It's not like they're taking bio and chem separately.
Yeah, so you would be
AP Science class.
That one, yeah, that's an AP Science class. As I said, every schedule is different. So like if you had a kid who was most kids don't, but if you're taking like AP Bio and AP Chem in the same, you could do that the same way that you do now. This is just pretty much like a balanced schedule, but the minutes are exactly the same as you would get now.
If you had curriculum, so we're adding, there's a full year, so classes be happening at a similar time at the same time. How are you going to balance curriculum? So things like books, how do you balance that out? I know we're investing more, that's part of the terms, but.
Yeah, you have to invest more. That's the reality of in certain.
But how would we'd have to buy double the books for everything that's. Not
necessarily. We have to, you have to take a look at the inventory of everything. Mm-hmm. In some cases with books, depending on the class, if it's like an ELA class, then you can say, a teacher's reading this book and then another teacher's reading another book. But there are situations where, like we said before, in like a science class where you would need to buy additional either licenses for online or books. That's a and we know that from any of the schedules that we put forward, that is going to be a reality of any new schedule that's running year long. You have to make that adjustment.
And as you mentioned, I was not here last year, but this was shared a year ago, so this was something that was communicated. Like, this has been out there. It's not a brand new schedule.
Yeah, this was asked about it, last year.
So one of your electives could be you're taking chorus or band, and that could be elective, so it won't be taking up DSB time.
Correct.
That's the benefit, I guess, or the feasibility of it.
Yeah, I tried in the 6th slide where it says like a sample schedule with support.
Yeah.
You can see that elective 1, that's again, these are the idea that classes can run year long.
Right.
So I just wanted to show what that might
under
be.
this model, it's feasible to move chorus and band into a regular period.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
And on the schedule with the APs, just so that I'm clear, that the AP Science, that's the same science course. It's not two separate.
Sorry, yeah.
It's like it would be.
If we'd said
AP
bio.
Yeah, it would say AP Bio, AP Bio. Yeah,
on
sorry.
A day, and it's also on B day for the first semester.
Yeah, because they have, right now, they're doing them 3 terms, and that,
Yep.
because they have labs and different things, so this is the way to get the 3 terms in. So you'd be doing 2 blocks the first half of the year, and then 1 block to get.
That's actually a good
I
point.
know,
So
it's just easier to look at it when it's like an
double-
actual class.
essentially
Yeah.
semester
Like we
double.
can,
So it's not,
You'd have
you're not
to, in
taking
order
AP
to,
Chem
yeah, I
and
mean, that's the
kindergarten.
only way.
right, that's.
I guess for
could be
me, it's important
construed that way.
to be brought up. Even though it's not as long as 3 terms, you're getting the same time because you're doing double the classes?
In that, in
Okay.
that first.
Got it.
So I just want to be clear for the community, though. While this is something that we're considering tonight, and we've gotten now the feasibility report, this is separate, and so are any sort of terms from the work of the subcommittee. The subcommittee continues to still meet per the MOA. They continue to discuss schedules, but we need to look at potentially alternative paths given the issues that have come up through there.
I guess it's also related to that, important for the community to know, like, schedules need to be created, I believe start in March, right?
They register for that.
Register for
classes,
classes.
start taking
Okay.
classes.
So we need to know what classes are going to be made available and when they're going to be.
Right,
Right.
it's time sensitive.
Yeah.
And this is feasible with current staffing levels, correct? We wouldn't have to make any changes?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, it's as I said before, it's a splice of our schedule, and then every other day.
It's merely taking the current schedule and make it year-long.
Year-long,
really.
that's,
I think it's important for the community, the students specifically, putting the student numbers on this, going from 4 to 8 classes. The way I look at this and how it's being built out is, I do a class today, I would have to cram that material in, where now I have all year. So even though I'm taking 8 classes and 8 different pieces of material, essentially, it shouldn't be as, I'll say, rigorous or in-depth. Like, how does that work for, I just want to think from the student lens here.
So one of the hard parts of scheduling across the board is there's no perfect answer to any question, right? I mean,
Depends what classes they take.
Right, it depends what classes you take. It depends the workload of those classes. The reality of the schedule, and I shared this publicly last year, is there are the classes are running, they are spread out, and there are 8 of them. So whereas now there's 4. So that's a reality of the schedule.
Okay, I'm good.
Well, I appreciate you putting this together. I know it was at our request. So we'll take it from here, I guess, and
For my own knowledge, so after it was presented last year, what was the outcome of that? Like,
So that presentation was a little bit different. That was an informational
Okay.
piece that was, so I came to, we had started a scheduling process, and it was asked of me just to present something that existed that, again, it was kind of the same idea, like, is there anything that exists that is our current schedule that nothing really changes?
Right.
Yeah.
You could sort of swap in for one.
But addresses
Right,
some
that
of the
was-
challenges we have with the current.
So that was what was asked of me last year, and so as a part of my updates on our schedule process and looking at schedules, that was presented right around the same time last year.
so we were still in bargaining the schedule. The high school schedule has been for a long time, but at that point, really after the NEASC report and after the equity audit, the issues with it had really risen to another level, and so we asked for sort of a presentation on some of the things to look at. Subsequent to that, we reached an agreement, and sort of that schedule subcommittee kind of took over for that part of the process.
Okay. I'm actually done now.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Principal.
Mr. List.
Thank you so much.
If you guys want the presentation from last year, I can share it with you.
That would be great.
It's in the folder.
Oh,
Yep.
I was like, I just pulled it out of my other folder. Well, then never mind.
All right, so what would we like to do with this tonight?
I don't think we're prepared. I mean, I'm not prepared to vote on something right now.
I'm not
I think that we need to take some time to hear from folks and
Review the last presentation.
yeah, review it over and see what might percolate in the meantime with the subcommittee that's still working on schedules. I'm hoping.
They're still meeting?
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad they're still meeting.
I guess the question I'll have there is if something comes up, 27's coming up, March is coming up. We don't know what we don't know, but if something comes up, how are we going to address there's potentially a new schedule?
If we don't vote tonight, I think that we would need to make a decision by the 27th.
Okay.
So they have between now and then, and we have to review that. But I just don't want to catch the community off guard, right? There's that perception and feedback we've been getting. I just want to make sure we're thinking through this.
A lot, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that we definitely don't want to catch the community off guard. So, if we don't want to vote tonight, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I think that we should encourage feedback and sort of talk to people in the next couple of weeks. And realize that break is one of those weeks, but so it's not ideal.
Well,
But
not everybody's traveling to South Carolina. I'm just saying.
is that really like the if you're thinking of the exotic place?
I'm also in favor of waiting to vote. We just heard the presentation tonight. I think we need a little bit more time to reflect and review.
Okay. Anything else, Don?
No.
Okay.
By what date in March do students choose their classes?
I don't know the schedule.
I don't know the exact. I think.
First. He's gone.
I think the issue is that we haven't presented to our incoming 8th grade students, so it's,
Right.
it's
a little bit
we're
moving
on
parts
borrowed
still.
time.
Right.
By the way.
Right. I know that all too well, having a rising freshman.
Put a pin in it.
I don't know, pen, but
Well, something.
something.
Yep.
It's kind of like thumbtack. It's going to come back in.
Little piece of painter's tape. Okay. We'll move on to the central office update.
Just a couple of quick things. I have my teacher meetings have taken place. There's some teacher meetings I had reached out to staff as I try to do each year, and I've had some really nice meetings today and this week and after vacation as well, which I really enjoy getting the opportunity to meet with different departments or individuals. Something new that Principal List would have heard if he was still here. I had, one of my thoughts is I try to get into classrooms and I'm never as successful as I would like to be. I need to get into them more often. I'm in buildings more, but I'm not always getting to classes when I meet with principals. Our time seems to run out before we get to classes together, so that's something that I still work on regularly. But I am going to be reaching out to principals. I did talk to Dr. Slaney today that I'm going to be doing principal for the day, that I will be the principal in each building and be there. And I'm going to try something new, and probably they would end up working remotely that day on school business, and I will be the acting principal, so it'll be my next strategy to visit with students. I'll probably reach out and see what works best for them. So Ms. Canoni might see me visiting that day as well, whatever day I come up with.
I'll send some kids to the office.
Thank you. And then tomorrow, I just want to mention that I do have my high school roundtable, which happens to fall on Valentine's Day. We'll see if students come. I don't know if that will change anything by it being on Valentine's Day or not, but I'm hoping I see some friendly faces there tomorrow. And let me see if there's anything else. I think, I will have for the next agenda too, the maintenance contract will be on the February 27th agenda. And then I know that there was, somebody had questioned me about where we are with our Holliston Coalition Against Hate and Bias. So I've had some smaller subcommittee meetings, 2 of them with a smaller member of that group. About 5 of us have been working on an Ally Pact. So we're going to be meeting on February 26th, I believe. And one of the things that I'm working on with Mr. Vinay is transition transitioning him to, now that he's not doing as much intensive work on the Equity Steering Committee, which was a challenge last year for him to try to do both. So, but he is going to try to take over more of the HCHB work as well going into next year. But we are having our next meeting, and I'll be working with that team to come up with, hopefully, a flyer for a community event, and we'll be rolling that out. So after that meeting, I'll have another update. Hopefully, we'll be marketing a larger community forum from that group.
Okay. Dr. Bernard?
The only thing I have to report, I have been busy getting the information you asked me at the Budget Subcommittee about interventions. I have some. I will have it completely ready for you the next school committee meeting.
Okay, great. Dr. Jordan?
Myself, Dr. Kuska, and Mrs. Alfred attended Mr. Ahern's kind of going away party earlier this week. It was nice to kind of see him off. They had some nice food arrangement and good conversation with folks, but whether we'll have the opportunity at the next school committee, but I just wish him well in his next steps.
You should join us for the next one.
I'm sure he'd love
Yeah,
to do
that's
that.
definitely not on his list of
Last
things to do.
night in Holliston.
You can send him an invite, though.
Yeah,
I will.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the reports from our subcommittees. Communications.
Yep. So we had talked about, we met on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? We were thinking of trying to set up some office hour dates and times.
Yeah, so we need to do, we can do office hours anytime, but we usually do them around the budget, but we could also do them earlier too if
Well,
more
hopefully
of them.
around until March anyway.
Yeah. No,
I'm just saying, like, we have
yeah.
vacation and we can't really,
Okay.
it's going to be like the first week of March anyway, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about dates tonight? I mean,
Do you have dates?
planning office hours is one thing that we can do outside of an open meeting.
Okay,
You can
that's fine.
schedule things, so maybe
Any-
could you put together a quick,
Doodle or something.
Okay.
doodle
Yeah.
type of thing?
Sure. I'll send a
Have we thought about other different ideas, though? I mean, I'm all for set up office hours, but we still have to maybe override how those went. And then I'm more than happy to sit there. But I feel like we're doing that and the community's not engaging, so, again, kind of thinking through what are better ways.
They're just not into us. You have some thoughts, Frank?
No, I just threw the question out there.
Thanks. It's like, you guys talk amongst yourselves.
No, but we should all think about other ways, and not that, I think we should do it for the budget, obviously, with the start times done now and high school schedule, like we have a lot of topics to talk about, but are there better ways?
Suggestion box.
Suggestion box.
Yes. Great.
There's this
At your house?
expression, you
Can
can
we put it-
lead
put it
a horse
at
to
your house?
water, but you can't make them drink,
We could go
so.
visit houses if they invite us, right? Like that may.
I'm not doing that. You could do office hours at the senior center if you like. Sorry, the center. I work there, which is a nice idea because
For
then,
budget, yeah.
Yeah, for budget,
All right.
yeah.
We did do one last.
We did, yeah. I did the candidates last year too, which I thought was well attended. So that will
Is
be,
there
that
a
will
ti-
be
is there a general time frame that people would like?
Well, we're only
is the
open till
first or-
4, so.
No, I'm just thinking in general
Well,
for
we're
when to
Probably between,
the first or second week of March.
Yeah,
well, except that we're not going
kind of pepper them.
to present our budget until the middle of March or so.
Do you want to do it after?
Yeah, but then we're still just getting feedback on
Well,
it.
we can do some before and some after.
Yeah.
I don't. So
Like how many do you think?
I don't know. We do 11 during the overrides. I'm thinking
Yeah, I don't think we need
16,
that many.
You don't need that
17.
many.
2 or 3.
We
Yeah,
did
I
like
was thinking-
3.
Okay.
We typically do like
more.
3.
Okay.
Unless Frank wants to do more, because,
I'm there.
He's just gonna knock on doors.
yeah, he's going to, oh, you're going to knock on doors?
Yeah, Joe and I.
Okay. Joe,
Hopefully we
he's
knock on more
volunteering you now,
doors
Joe.
in Town of Holliston.
Nice.
Both.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Let me know how that goes.
All right, I'll send a pull
Can
up.
do other venues.
I like the center ranking.
Yeah, come to the center.
I realized I totally forgot when we were
Office.
Office hours. What's up? Oh, newsletter.
no, well, but I know I forgot that when we were discussing the high school schedule that we have a communication to go over to send out tomorrow to the community to discuss
Oh.
the
Well, then it should be like this big, like, this is something we're presenting, here it is, here's the link.
I
Give us
drafted
your
something.
thoughts. I know, I'm just, but
I think we need to
it's a
do a little
little
more than-
verbose, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
So
well,
just
we can talk about cutting it down, but I
Yeah,
think we need a
let's
little bit
cut
more
it out.
color than just, you
No,
know,
we don't need
here's what
more
we're thinking.
color, just quick, easy, short. Short's better.
And is this coming from you or the committee?
Well, the idea of discussing it now would be so that it would
So
come
it
from
comes
the
from the
committee.
committee.
Yeah.
That would be.
Oh, it's not on the agenda, is
It's
it?
in the folder.
Okay. I gotta go back. Closed out of it. Draft. The one that says draft email? Okay,
Draft schedule email.
okay.
You should all have edit access. What I did was take some of the pros and cons from the presentation that Mr. List had done last year and put them on here. And
Do we have, can we link his presentation onto this?
we're going to include the presentation that he just gave, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yep.
Well, we can include last year's too, if that's helpful. I don't know if it's just
No, I think it's kind
redundant.
of dated and redundant.
Yeah, but never mind.
Confusing.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
It's beyond the scope of what we're, yeah.
Let's, based on current.
Schedule, I think, yeah, but not only is it just past the deadline, but it passed the deadline to feasibly implement due to
Well,
something.
that's more moot, though.
Okay.
Because in the MOA, we have April 1st.
The third bullet is a little confusing. The math courses, semester-long, full year.
Right, so I think that's discussing the fact that, so one of the issues with a lot of the schedules was that if you, the way that the block schedule works now, you can take a whole course at the beginning, for the first semester, then take the fall, the course that builds on it for the second semester. That's more difficult, so obviously, if you're running full year courses. And so there was the potential for some, so the AB implementation of our current schedule sort of allows some flexibility so that your math doesn't really change.
Okay.
So if there's a better way of saying that, I'm all,
It's just the semester-long, full year makes it sound like it should be one or the other. Do you know what I mean?
Semester long and full year versus semester
Or
long,
just,
full year?
can we just take out semester-long, just have it be full year?
Yeah, I think it's confusing.
Wouldn't all classes be full year?
Yeah, so it's,
No,
I think it's the
all
example
classes are
where,
not
right now, like
full year.
in freshman year, they would have Algebra 1, Part 1 for half a year.
Right.
And then Algebra 1, Part 2, so it's really 2 years of math. So
Got
they'd
it.
still have to double up math by taking.
Oh, is that why in his schedule they had?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
so
it.
they'd have it every day if it was going to,
because you would take it
But like-
both the AB days.
Like PE is only one term,
Yeah.
So in this next iteration, it would be one semester.
Yeah, so
two terms.
Yeah.
Two terms, yeah.
I think a better way of saying that then is both days full year long. Like both AV days full versus semester long full year.
Daily, full year.
Daily full year, there we go. Right? Is that better, cleaner way to say it? Versus alternating?
Yeah, I think people are not going to really understand any.
I know, it's going to be hard, it's hard to describe it.
I mean, I just think semester long full years. Daily for the full year.
Or it allows for them, for the math, for math progression to remain consistent with current.
But it is.
No, it's
staying the same, you're right.
Staying the same. Or would, it could.
They can take math every day for the full year.
Yeah.
Like they can now.
Sounds better.
Is it every day for the semester?
For the year.
It depends on which the math course is. Like, for example, like I mentioned, the Algebra 1, Part 1 and Part 2, that's really 2 years of math. So if they're going to take math.
Right, but then they would be taking 2 semester-long courses.
Right. You wouldn't have to take the second semester. You could.
You would just take it, so you'd take math every day for the full year, which would be the makeup. So Algebra 1 in freshman year would be all year long instead of Part 1 and Part 2. It'd be every day all year.
Yep.
You're not taking 2 math courses at one time.
Over the course of the whole year, instead you just take them every day, all year. That's what you're pretty much doing already. You are doing that already.
I did appreciate, though, Mr. List's response to AP, because that was a concern last time, and
Which then becomes
makes a lot more sense.
Throughout the year.
Yeah. And same classroom time, just shorter, because the way we're doing it.
So some math classes you'll still take every day throughout the year.
I mean, one of the things I didn't include in there, but just something I've been, has been something we've talked about a lot, is if you get the flu and you miss a week of school, right now, you're missing like 1/16, however many weeks are in a semester, you're missing a huge amount of class time. Whereas if you're, go to a schedule that's year long, you miss half of that.
Yeah.
For each class.
But I guess across more classes, so.
It's across more classes, but then you have more
Less
time to
content.
catch up with it. Because I think that, some of the things that, this is not doubling the workload. It is, you're taking you have 4 or 5 core classes, and then you have electives. You have other opportunities to get services. I mean, this is it is more courses, but again, you're meeting every other day.
I think the appreciation, too, of you're not condensing, you're not getting in, getting out, and forgetting it. Like, there's more time, I feel like there would be more time to
There's more time
develop.
for the learning to happen and sink in, right?
Yeah, because if I skip it, there has to be some sort of recap for at least a piece of that, like, because you've skipped potentially a year.
Well, in the current model, you could take French first semester of freshman year and then not again until second semester of sophomore year.
Exactly, and by then, I don't remember much.
Right.
So.
I don't remember having yesterday, but
okay. Well, it's the reason you're not in school.
Many reasons. So right, and I think there is research out there that says, if you break up the learning a bit, it allows for the learning to sink in more. So, I guess, while seeing a teacher every day for a semester might make sense. I mean, having that same teacher for the entire year also allows for those relationships and those
sure.
that to
I don't know if we need to say vote. We chose not to take a vote last night on this potential change. I think we can just say we want to take the next 2 weeks here from the community.
Okay.
A lot to think about.
It is. But, again, I think that well, we have a lot to think about it. This is not obviously the sort of, in my mind anyway, the ideal solution, but at the same time, we have identified so many significant concerns for so many. I mean, there are, is a huge percentage of kids that are either on IEPs or doing abandoned courses that are missing out on a lot of different opportunities. And, again, we have had this scheduled for 25 plus years. Most districts that went to the block schedule have moved away from it or significantly modified it to be a much different sort of implementation. We are behind and our students are hurting for it. And
Yeah, I think it would be important to, if this were to go through, measure any impact. I mean, we're hoping to see positive impact, right? I mean,
generally the idea of making decisions and changes is to see positive impact.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But we should measure that. Data dashboard.
Yeah.
All right, well, at least it's under a page, so that's something.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, any more changes? All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve this communication to the, is there anything we want to, is there any other stuff we want to include with it? No?
There was just, no,
Okay.
just,
No, we just, I'd been talking with Sarah earlier about just some other things that we'd wanted to sort of send out in a kind of a newsletter, but
Yeah, I think at this
don't
time,
blur things together.
just keep this.
Just keep it
So
clean.
recap.
That's fine. I just-
yeah.
That's okay.
Okay, great. So,
That works.
I don't want to.
No, it's not voted on.
And then we can consider a newsletter for the
Yeah,
next,
a little bit
next
later.
time. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve this communication being sent out to the community tomorrow hopefully tomorrow.
Moved by Dawn?
Second?
All right, Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
And Dawn?
Yes.
And I am yes. Okay, we will get that out. Thank you. And then please, for people in the community, I'll add in there just to go ahead, just to make, communicate with us, send us emails,
Put our emails in there.
We're going
you
to.
should.
She's, I was anticipating doing that. But please do, let us know what you think. I think that there was a survey done, but I think there was limited information that we were able to provide to the community about the others. It's scheduling, as I've learned, is not simple. So, and there's a lot of misinformation out there too, so.
Okay. And we're going to make sure that the link of the report is in here, right? Because it's not highlighted right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it going to be linked, or is it going to be a separate item with the letter?
I'm gonna send it to Mr. McLeod, and how he chooses is best to send it out will be,
Okay.
Probably link it.
Okay.
I just didn't want to
I feel like
promise. I
we've
don't want
missed
to
a few
promise.
things that have been linked in, and there's like a double link, and then people are like, I didn't see it.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Fluffy. Are we talking about the calendar now?
No, we policy. Any updates
Oh, I just did mine. Oh,
No.
well, I asked to meet.
for subcommittee?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just sent out a request to hold for a meeting on Tuesday, the 25th, but I don't know if it's feasible yet.
Okay. Budget.
You're muted, Dawn.
Had a meeting on Monday, February 10th, and that is when we went over the Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 of the budget and the superintendent's proposed budget. We will meet again in advance of our February 27th next meeting.
Okay. Super eval.
Our next meeting is February 26th in central office at 4:30.
Okay. Moving on, we will move to the middle school math discussion. I think there's something in your folders about that.
Yes, I just put an information sheet in there for you. And there's a link just to some current research that had been brought to my attention just for a whole country that's looking to rethink how they're doing math as well. If you look at the left side of the document, it has the 8th grade current year. What we're doing is we do the regular level is Math 8 with all of the current grade 8 math standards. And then the accelerated class has Math 8 standards. And then most of, but missing 4 of the Algebra 1 standards that are taught in Algebra 1. So what we would propose for next year is, as we talked about at the last meeting, I believe a couple meetings ago, maybe it was now, is making to try to get more students being exposed to algebra, taking what we currently do in the accelerated class and having that be the regular Math 8/algebra class, which is the same standards that you see on the right of the 24-25 year would now be for the general level, and then the full Algebra 1 would be adding those 4 standards. The concerns with that are really around the students that had covered in the current model. The current grade 8 accelerated group would have had grade 8 standards, which is tested on MCAS, but also that they need for other learning later. And they also had a lot of the Algebra 1 standards. That means the students that are in grade 7 now, when they go into grade 8, if they're in the accelerated Algebra 1, they will not have the ability to get the Math 8 standards. There's going to be a gap there. There's no way to make that up when you know, because those standards just would go away with Algebra 1. We have some ideas that we've talked about maybe trying to do some potential enrichment opportunities, and again with this math tutor idea that right now Rams block has a lot in the schedule, and it's a short block. But that's when we do some interventions, so potentially we could do some enrichment offerings there, so students could take and get some of the Math 8 standards that they wouldn't be getting in grade 7 right now going into grade 8, and then potentially offering some after-school opportunities for math enrichment to get the Math 8 standards that they have missed as well. There's also the part of the work we talked about would be that we're going to be having a math study group at the high school and working with teachers there to see, as we've talked about, trying to shift some of the grade 8 standards down to grade 7 and some of the 7 down to 6. We'll still continue that work with teachers either between this spring and going into the summer. It's challenging. I mean, you know, anytime you try to make adjustments like that, it's a lot of work, and we want our teachers' input on that. But then I know that part of what the middle school teachers have talked about is trying to get that full Algebra 1 in, already knowing that there's gaps because they won't have the Math 8 standards going into grade 8. They would also want to see if high school could absorb some of the Algebra 1 standards as we go into algebra for the Algebra 2 the following year, because we would expect that anyone that's taking Algebra 1 getting not maybe the full, because we still have to work through this, but they'd be getting as close to a full Algebra 1 in grade 8 would be able to go into geometry in freshman year, but then we'd still have potentially some standards that, you know, as we transition, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a one-year fix to try to move this model forward.
When we do Algebra 2, when students have a gap, because they do Algebra 1, they do geometry, and they do Algebra 2, they generally have some, you know, review in Algebra 2 of the for 1 standards. Is that a point to work on those things, or is that more just supposed to be just review?
So that's something we've talked about with the middle school, and we haven't had a chance to talk with the high school yet, but part of what I think it was in our presentation when we were talking about the math study group about really trying to do beginning of the year assessments as well to determine what do we actually need to review. Okay. Are we doing too much review? Do all students need that review? So really being strategic about dipping and assessing at the beginning of the year. That would not be a graded assessment. It would be a determination of what the true needs are, and then figuring out if there's gaps to fill there as they enter both 8th grade, but then also into the high school classes. So we want to work on that with all teachers and have them build what works best for them. Also with the IXL, part of having that's one of the reasons we purchased that program, because that also will help identify standards that students are missing, and that's where For students that are in the general level, that have standards that are missing or gaps coming in from 7th regardless, that's where the intervention model works and helps the teachers and tease out, and Carla with her work, and hopefully another tutor for next year can specifically target in MTSS interventions the missing standards there. But then for students in the accelerated, we want to make sure we help fill their gaps, because this isn't their fault that they didn't get exposed to that.
Have we thought about too, and I may be completely out of line here, if you're going from 7th grade into Algebra 1, so you're missing that red, dark red, right? Bright red, over, like, I remember when I did that, there was summer material, like, hey, catch up on this, like, these are things, to be honest, you're gonna miss, so you need to do it as a pre-work almost. Again, it's hard to force and do, but making that material exposed to them. If I'm a student going in Algebra 1, I have a higher aptitude, and thus, there might be more expected of you.
Sure, I'd love to say yes, but again, that gets back to some of the equity issues we've seen. There's some students that have to work all summer or babysit their, there's different.
Well, to be fair, in 7th grade, you can't really work, but won't go there. You do have other duties, it's fair. They can baby, yes, absolutely.
But I'm helping with siblings, all of those things, or just they're away for the summer. So yes, we could certainly offer summer expectations and hope that they're doing that. It just goes, as we're trying to open doors and not close doors, it still creates inequities if you can't expect them all to do it. There's really no easy solution.
How do we do this before?
I'm curious about, so for the proposed 25-26 year, basically Math 8 is all of what is included in our current accelerated course. Do we feel confident that we're going to be able to teach that?
Well, this is the work that we haven't had a chance to work with the teachers on yet. This is what we're suggesting.
It feels like
I'm confused
aggressive.
why we haven't done the work though yet, because we voted last March to do this.
Yep, and Joni had scheduled numerous hours with teachers, and they started proposing shifting some of the standards and what they thought that they could do. We're hearing now, when we met with all of the teachers, that they weren't able to necessarily accomplish what they had hoped to accomplish through no fault of their own.
So if I'm reading this right, the proposal for next year is that the path for all students is Math 8/Algebra, which is the current accelerated. And then when they get to 9th grade, that's that Algebra 1 column for all students. Is that right?
Or 8th grade.
That's 8th grade.
This is still 8th grade, so the green side is what we're proposing.
Two pathways in 8th
Yes.
grade?
Yes, because we currently have two, so we're not.
it feels like you've just ramped everyone
too
up a
accelerated.
level,
Yeah.
Okay,
which I
I
don't
see.
Actually, that's a
I
good
don't
point.
know
We're
that.
ramping everyone up.
is the approach.
So let me just, so the standards that would be missed by the 8th graders next year that went into Algebra 1, I apologize if that was something that maybe I just didn't understand. Is that something that is going to be a recurring thing, that they would always, the Algebra 1 students the following year, the existing 6th graders would also miss those standards?
Well, I think that's what we're hoping to account for, because really, no matter how you slice this, you're looking to do 4 years of math in 3 years, right?
Okay, but prior to your coming to the districts, my understanding is that in 2019 we did have a full year of Algebra 1.
They had 3 levels in 8th grade at that point.
Okay, but so were they still hitting all the standards though? And how were they able to do that then, if you're saying it's not
I
possible
don't know that they were
now?
doing necessarily a full algebra at that time.
Okay, even in our current schedule, Math 8 and Accelerated, volume
Each of these
is not covered in
Each of
the
these units is not like one day. Do you
No,
know what I mean?
I know.
You're taking a unit and it's like
It could be, it could
weeks
range.
worth of work, and then trying to split them up. So it may look kind of
I'm
on the
I'm
page
trying to see if there's anything is there anything missing from Math 8 that if you're an
in
Accelerated?
the blue.
And so prior to, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to the change, before my arrival, the Algebra 1 that was in 8th grade, they weren't getting all of the Math 8 standards, and that's why, that was one of the reasons that we were trying to get some equity on that as well, if I recall that discussion.
They got the
power
8th grade standards in 7th grade, and then they did the And then they did, so then when they were in 8th grade, they didn't revisit the Math 8 standards, they took algebra.
So, and David Jordan, I think you just explained it, but isn't that the model that DESE has right now for how to implement a full Algebra 1 in 8th grade, is to, in 7th grade, cover 7th grade standards plus Math 8 standards so that you can in fact do all of Algebra 1? I guess I don't, I'm really concerned about moving to a different model where we're not teaching all of the standards, right? When we know there's a model out there, the DESE model, that allows you to cover all of them.
Yeah, I can speak to kind of like what we were aiming to do back in 2020 and 2019 as far as those standards and the way that those were mapped out. DESE's provided a model, and then there are models that like Needham Public and some of the other districts have utilized as well. This is where, when we were back in 2019 and started this, really 2017 and started this process, we were moving standards across all 3 grades, and so that everyone had leaving 7th grade had the opportunity to potentially take an algebra course in 8th grade. Not that all kids would take an algebra course in 8th grade, but they would have the opportunity. And what the focus of that was to delay the kind of barrier that's kind of created like too early by the level, but not necessarily deny algebra for 8th grade, so that they could move into the same pathway they would at the high school after 8th grade.
And I just want to go back to why all of this work happened is because we received an equity audit that really had indicated that this was concerning, and then we had an equity steering committee, and we put together the mass study group as a result of the recommendations that we had. And there are other districts, and I don't think I have the list tonight, but we could get the list of some of the districts that have de-leveled completely. So we did explain why the committee recommended, the math study group recommended de-leveling, looking at the data in front of us, the team approach, and it is tracking students. And when you have teams and levels, the tracking pretty much tracks them all day. And then although we would like to say we can open more barriers and open more doors to allow children to enter, if they haven't had the content exposure, even if they have the ability, they're still going to fall behind, and it makes them entering that next level nearly impossible, no matter what system we put in place. Again, we heard the concern that there was no interest in de-leveling. I understand that, but in order to make these changes and minimize adding levels to school, I mean, that was a detriment when you undid the teams, is what I think would happen. What year, Mr. Jordan? Do you remember when the teams were taken away and then re-added, correct?
Specifically in 8th grade, due to the number of students that we had, and then kind of the variation of students and their needs across the district, we de-teamed in 8th grade for a couple of years in order to account for that. And that was, I mean, I can look up specific. I want to say that was 2017 and 2018.
I feel like the changes were for the equity audit.
I'm sorry?
I feel like some of these changes.
Yeah, no, the changes happened in 2019 is when it was, the process started. You started addressing it in 2017.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Didn't changes start after 2020? I think it was in the fall of 2019. You held, like you brought parents in and told them that the changes would be implemented the following year.
Yeah, so we, prior to, and I can speak a little bit to the history, prior to COVID, like, I mean, the conversations, the meetings, both with families and with the high school and with folks started in about 2017. Those initial conversations with the high school started with Jenna Galster, who was the department head at that point in time. And then it wasn't until 2019, after that long process, that it was presented as far as making that transition in 2020. The 2020-2021 school year, obviously March of 2020 hit, and that's where we ended up. But we had not made a transition yet at that point.
Right, we had 2 levels in 7th grade in the school year of 1920.
Correct.
And 3 levels in 8th grade in the school year of 1920.
Correct.
Okay.
So I guess. Oh, go ahead.
I would like more information on, the fact that the vote was last March, so we've had almost a year, and it sounds like the teachers have tried to work in these additional standards, but as you said, Dr. Kuska, no fault of their own. I'd like more information on that, because I'm really concerned with continuing to go with a model that is not DESE's model, right? I mean, I think there's probably a reason why DESE has a model with leveling in 7th grade to allow all of the Math 8 standards to be covered. I am really concerned we're trying to fix one hole and creating another one by not teaching all of the standards before they go into high school.
So,
and at the same time, I think I heard you say the teams and leveling impact. Again, I'd like to approach, if we bring back the leveling in 7th grade and have the leveling in 8th grade, can we mitigate the impact of that by taking a closer look at teams? And I know there are some benefits to having teams, but are there other things that other structures we can put in place in middle school to get the pros that we get from teams, but also minimize what you're describing as the impact of teams and leveling together?
well, again, not being a teacher in the building at that middle school, I think that would really, we should be engaging teachers in those conversations, because if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Jordan, part of that was the teachers saying that the teaming of students was beneficial, and that's why you went back to that model.
Yeah, I don't want to, without focusing on solutions with this, is I don't want to, throw the baby out of the bathwater with too many things. I think what the middle school has created and been over the last several years is what kind of led to the recognition that we have. So I always want to be cautious when we're unpacking things that have led to a successful model to date. I think every solution, including levels or not levels, have consequences and benefits, and I think it's worth kind of taking a deeper analysis of that.
One thing else, because John brought up, and I want to forget, John, you were mentioning that the teachers were not able to get to where they were hoping. We also brought in, as you know, a huge new math curriculum resource district-wide, and training and everything else. So our teachers are learning all of this material too. So in fairness, they're working really hard. It's not that they're not willing and able and trying, but they're...
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's why I think they need to be part of that conversation as far as what they believe is manageable with additional training, with additional, the PD that they're having, as well as the time to absorb the new materials, what they do feel like they could accomplish if we try to shift.
My only thing to add in is Robert Adams Middle School is something for Holliston to be really proud of. It's one of the highest performing middle schools in the state of Massachusetts, and was nationally recognized as a middle school. So I just think anytime we're looking at anything that we're wanting to adjust or modify there, I think we should do it with deep analysis if we're doing that.
And I don't think anyone is disagreeing with how great our middle school is. But that doesn't mean that we want to also be careful making changes in any way, right? Because it could be that potentially the leveling is part of the reason for our success. We absolutely want teachers to be involved in this, and so what I'm wondering is how was the current math study group then put together? Because there aren't really math teachers on that committee.
We reached out, Joni sent, did I send it or you sent out? Asking for volunteers to support that work. So we have one 8th grade math teacher volunteered, and then the 4 STEM intervention positions were part of that, but I'd say more attendance by the middle school and high school people.
High school assistant principal.
But it was only focused on the middle school.
Yes, but we needed, I mean, what the
get the high
middle school
school
does
input,
impacts the high school, so.
Well, no, but now we're talking about having a high school math study group.
Correct.
So I mean, we had, I guess what is kind of funneling me, I'll say, is that we had a math curriculum review committee last year that, from all accounts, seems to have overwhelmingly voted in favor of maintaining, if not expanding, levels. And then we have a math study group this year that is in favor of de-leveling. And I'm having difficulty reconciling the two.
So one of the things we did introduce this year is we talked about is that data dashboard and having that data being able to disaggregate the data, and that is where the conversations happened this year, looking at the data and the research that, as I think Joni explained last year, they did have the math curriculum review focusing on purchasing the materials and looking at the current things we had, and we had the standards and instruction was happening. I only attended 1 or 2 of those meetings, but the data analysis and research had not happened, and that's why we proposed having this year to look at the data and research.
And the vote they took was a temperature check before. We did not have the opportunity to do a deep dive into all of the information. So we were focused on picking resources that we were going to use.
And I think I remember at the time, too, that the Equity Steering Committee had not started yet. We had just shared that report in October, and then he had just started those meetings, so we had also asked for time for the Equity Steering Committee to look at this, and then they shared their recommendations. So all of these things, it's like a perfect storm, all happening at once, plus a whole district-wide initiative with new curricular resources after 15 years of no math curriculum reviews. So a lot was happening. No one was trying. We were being as transparent about this process. We were giving updates regularly. So yes, although the math study group did recommend de-leveling, we did not go that route. We came back with an alternative, which we would then have to work more closely with teachers to see how we could implement, to see if we can shift some of the 6th and 7th grade standards down, as we discussed. But also, algebra is not happening just in grade 8. Algebraic concepts are happening K all the way up, and that is also the goal of the work that we're doing district-wide to help support teachers with the algebraic thinking, so that as they progress through our system, all students should have a better acquisition of algebraic concepts.
But I mean, on one hand, you're saying that our students, we haven't had the time to sort of get them fully up to speed on the standards and the curriculum early on, and yet the proposal, though, is to actually sort of put our current math, 8th grade math program on sort of steroids, if you will, and accelerate it, because we're shifting everybody up. So that's just an inconsistency that I'm not fully understanding. And again,
you're making the advanced class the regular class now, and you're making Algebra 1 the advanced class.
Right.
I'm trying to look at this from what does this look like for teachers to students? And so if I'm looking at that Math 8/algebra pathway for students next year, the question that keeps coming up for me is, are kids going to get enough, are teachers going to be able to dive deep enough into those concepts and meet the needs of the kids in the class? One of the things that I'm looking at is functions. So I'm not a math teacher, but functions is introduced in 8th grade, I believe, for the first time. And then there's a ton of functions standards. It's a huge component of Algebra 1. That seems like a lot for kids that maybe struggling in math or not, to be introduced to that concept and then really built and dive deep into that, as well as all the other things they have to cover as Math 8 and algebra, and differentiate for kids too. So I'm curious about the feedback teachers would have in terms of how deeply they can get into all these concepts and meet the needs of learners throughout the year.
And the other option would be to keep the general math as the regular math 8 and not add, but we were also hearing that there was a desire to have more opportunities to expose students to algebraic thinking so that we could expand pathways and versus closing, so.
But since it's already a subset, potentially taking that down a bit.
I'm sorry?
Right, taking the material down a bit. Like, it's not like it's only red or only blue. If we think about it, there's a lot of concepts in there. I know every dot is not equal, but just the quantity of it, I agree with you, Hillary, just seems a lot. So like looking at how to expose them to algebraic concepts, but not into the same scale or quantity of material. So cutting that down.
Yeah, and that would be the work that the teachers would do in terms of, I mean, we have to.
And that's what they're struggling with right now in curriculum meetings. The middle school's concentrating on that, moving things around and kind of figuring out what the 6th grade can pick up more, what the 7th grade can pick up more, and the teachers are determining that. We're not telling them how to do that.
Because I thought what I had asked for last week was really sort of a grade by grade sort of look at what each grade standards were, what we were looking to shift. Because obviously we'd also last year asked that standards be shifted, that 7th grade standards be shifted to 6th grade, that 8th grade standards be shifted to 7th grade in preparation of the ability to offer a full year of Algebra 1 for some kids next year. So if we could see that as well, and maybe just it's my the fact that I'm more of a number person than a written person, following this is just a little bit difficult to try to follow which standards are where. I don't know if we can number the standards so that they're consistent and you can sort of see one is there,
Where they line up.
where they kind of line up. I keep looking, I'm doing a search for triangles and like that, and just trying to figure out where that is.
Carla's developing a document, Mr. Alfred, that has all the standards that are color-coded by grade. And then you can see, like, if a different color's in a different color, that is indicating you're shifting it from one grade to another grade. So we can get that to you.
Like in the proposal for next year, are there Math 8 standards that then would be in grade 7?
Yes.
Okay, so that's sort of the things that I'd like to see as well.
Yeah. Right, but as we presented that work, we had said that was the work that we would be doing with teachers in the spring, so we haven't had the opportunity to do that work with them yet. Joni's just starting that work.
Yeah, but they're 7th graders now. They're like halfway through the year, so I guess I'm...
No, we did, the teachers did. As I said, we spent how many hours of work we paid
Summer, correct.
for the teachers, and they put together what their proposals were. But then, as I indicated, they got a whole new math curriculum and needed to dive deep in that. So, similar to other things that you hope to accomplish, it's not anyone's, the effort was there, but there's a lot of work on their plates, and so it's not always a perfect science and as simple as just adding the standards and making it happen.
Have you looked at the middle of the year IXL data and seen kind of our current 7th grade class? What would this look like for them to move into Math 8 algebra next year? Who are the kids that are going to need some support? Where would that fall in their schedules?
So some of that right now, the IXL, I know that Carla is using that to develop the MTSS interventions, but yes, looking at the standards they're missing and trying to fill the gaps, but you want to talk a little bit more about that?
We are building the 7th grade teachers, actually, was that this week? All the weeks are running together to me. At their curriculum meeting, I apologize if it was this week or next week. Or last week, or the week before. This week or the week before, I apologize. They're working on creating an IXL test, not for grade, but that's assessing them on the standards that we're looking at moving around to see what their understanding is, to see if they don't have to spend a lot of time on that standard. If they already know it, then we're not going to have to spend a lot of time on it. You see what I'm saying? So they're trying to figure out where we are in the standards that we have in the Math 8/algebra column right now.
I'm just wondering about, as IXL is adaptive, the 7th grade class, which of those 7th graders still have gaps that we need to support right now? And then thinking about, would they be ready to move forward at an accelerated pace, and kind of
Yeah.
using the adaptive component with the test that you're describing.
And that is what we're trying to do with.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's addressing some of that through intervention. It would be nice if we had more support. Carla's only one person. And that's our issue, right? That we can't target everybody. She's doing a phenomenal job. I wish I could clone her, because she's so good at what she does. But unfortunately, we have one person to do that work at the middle school.
So we do at some point need to make a decision though. I mean, it almost looks like what you're proposing for next year really is sort of almost going back to what we really probably need is 3 levels of math. Because again, I don't know how you accelerate everybody without leaving some kids behind essentially. And I guess, so I kind of would really like to see that sort of full progression from 6th through 8th for different tracks. And then I'd like to see what the DESI model kind of looks like at this kind of level with these, to see how that would fit as well.
And we may need to think about, so Dr. Kuska, you presented last week, coming in with this plan and then following up in the 26-27 year with possibly de-leveling 7th grade. Could
7th grade is not leveled right now.
de-leveled.
That's what happened in.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
As part of the.
And our students have, the data has improved, so it's not like, there's plenty of districts that de-level and some that level, and the success
It would be then,
varies,
yeah. I mean, it would be good to see those students and then honors 7th math. Could we cover those 8th, the ones missing in Algebra 1? Because those students would theoretically be moving to Algebra 1, I would assume.
Say that again?
So if I'm in the honors 7th, are we going to cover?
There is one level in grade 7.
There's no levels. But you can see with no levels in
Oh, sorry,
7th grade,
I mixed up the
they have done
terms. We should
extremely
go
well.
in level 7th grade then. Sorry, I'm using the wrong terms.
But if you look at, to go to Dr. Jordan's point, they have done a phenomenal job. So to mess with putting levels back in 7th grade is messing with the successes they've had, that they've been able to do with.
Is that the key to getting through all the standards? So there was a point when you could cover all of them. In fact, DESI's model has all of these standards being covered if you level 7th and 8th. So is there a plan that you can present that covers all standards, not, moving to cover all of Algebra 1, but then also taking away some geometry standards?
So, I think if the desire was that was the desire to re-level 7th grade, we came in with what the recommendation was based on data and research, and if the purview is that you would like to level in 7th grade, that's certainly your purview. It does, I just want to remind, the reason that we went this direction was we had an equity audit saying that there really should not be levels in grade 8, in middle school, and we should be looking at all of our schedule offerings and opportunities, so this was not taking, there was not a desire to just blow things up. We could have left things the way they were as well, but we had information coming into us that we had to look at. We had an equity steering committee. I don't want to discount all the work that the people in these various groups did. And that certainly could have been decided last year if there wasn't, if the recommendation isn't going to be taken in consideration, or to go the other way to add levels. It goes against everything that we've received, so that is why we proposed as a group what we did.
Well, I think as Amanda said earlier, though, the equity audit kind of seemed to ignore the other side of equity.
Yeah.
And that's my concern. I haven't heard anyone on the committee really want a D-level. And if the only way to sort of keep, if the only way to really keep levels in 8th grade is to bring back levels in 7th grade, then I think that's something that
So
we
then we
need to consider.
start tracking so we're just going to go back to tracking every single thing again.
And closing more
Because
doors.
you're closing off.
No.
We often tie
No.
science with math together as well. So I just feel like that's closing off opportunity than opening it up.
No, we need to work on ensuring, because again, part of equity is ensuring opportunities for movement within the pathways.
Yeah.
And so that may not have been something that we were doing before, and then something that we can look at. So that No, absolutely, no. I'm not, as I said last time, we're absolutely not looking to track kids and, not allow for movement within those tracks. We need to find ways to support kids and get them to where they want to be. I've been told not to use the word rigor, but what I mean by rigor is to allow kids to run as hard and fast as they are able and want to, and give them the support for kids who want to be able to do more, while also allowing kids who just kind of want to learn and to do that too, and not have to feel like they're forced to push harder than they're able.
We should not push kids to be
I'd also, if I can, I'd also like to say things have changed somewhat since 2018 and 2019. The district has invested in programs like IXL and All Learners Network, and I think in part of that, what I've heard from administration is it allows kids to go farther when they can and learn more. So I think, I also think it's different than 2019 and 20 when we were deciding who goes into the 2 levels in 7th grade or the 3 levels in 8th grade. I believe at that time you were looking backwards to MCAS scores from almost a year before, right? Along with teacher recommendation. There was now we have programs that allow us to test kids more often and identify kids that are ready to make that move. You're not just relying on data from a year previous, right?
Yeah, I will say though, there are some very high achieving districts that do not level. I think it's Wellesley, Needham have gone that, and they're not seeing that students are coming out with deficits as a result of those changes. Again, I understand that there's not a desire to de-level grade 8, and that's okay.
But you see conflicting messages.
There's cases and arguments on both sides. I mean, Newton, the de-leveling blew up. I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned in all of this is that there is actually no one right answer to say this is the way to do it. I think it's a community by community based decision. I think it has to do a lot with the resources the community has, just the families, the desires from families. I've not talked to one person in this town that wants de-leveling.
And I'm just saying,
but I'm just simply saying. So there's.
But you're talking about adding levels at this point. I'm just saying that we came to that.
Yeah, what I will say is, like, regardless of for or against levels, adding or not, the more levels you have, the more constraints you place on the schedule, which create more clusters of isolation for kids. Period. Like, regardless of what you do. So if we're looking to add levels or remove levels, that's, that poses, each one of those directions poses other consequences that need to be addressed. If the concern by removing levels is rigor for higher performing kids, then, that's a problem that needs to be addressed if you go that route. If you are looking to create more levels, it kind of creates a distilling effect down to where we end up, and that was kind of the graphic I had shown last year, is where you end up with predominantly, not just predominantly, almost exclusively students of color on IEPs, students on 504s, L students all in the same courses there. So those pose problems surely from the levels that are there that put constraints on the schedule, which means that those might be problems that we solve. Doesn't mean that it's about levels or not. It just means that those are problems that need to be solved regardless of what direction the school committee decides to go in.
Yeah, no, I remember your presentation last year, and that was quite telling and stark. I mean, I don't want to discount that, and I don't want to recreate that. Yeah. So we need to think about it. But that's, again, why we should have more conversations with the staff at Adams about the teams and whether that's, where is their priority too. So what was the other thing? I had something else. Anyway.
I think it's too, when you have a smaller district too, and you start to put all these constraints on it, you actually create that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if you're a 3,000 student high school, you have lots of options and things and pathways you go. The smaller the school, the...
And you can spread the kids out more.
That was my question. So we have this data dashboard now. How far back did we load data? So I'm curious, if we look at kids from middle, in 16 and 17, and how they ended up doing on their high school MCAS scores versus, this might be asking for,
Yeah, we'd have to-
for too much.
That's a lot.
But
I know we
but-
were also in the middle of that, we have COVID, so.
No, but we're far enough out of COVID now that if we look at kids from like 16, 17 before anything was done, and then how their MCAS scores did, and especially how it was relative to the state, and we look from kids who, 3 years ago, we're coming out of middle school and now just took the MCAS last year. How are they doing? I mean, that we're yes, COVID's still there because there's still, but it's worth at least
2019.
looking. Well, I was going to go back even further just to kind of get away from.
The dashboard doesn't do that.
Doesn't go back.
Oh, you're saying it goes back to 19?
Yeah, I'm in there right now.
Okay.
Right.
Can we load the data? Can we get that data?
No, I
Not
don't.
in
it's-
time to
no.
what you're looking at.
And I don't know how far they can go back.
I don't know either.
Okay, so what are we asking for?
So how do you envision addressing, do you think, like, okay, so if you're thinking that your plan for this next year, and there's going to be a gap, do you feel that that is a gap for 1 year of students, just that 1 year that we can target interventions to make sure those students are up to speed in either the 8 or Algebra 1 if they're ready for that? We're trying to just provide an opportunity for students to take Algebra 1. And I'm imagining that maybe in this first year, that might be a smaller group of students, but it may grow as the years go by and we're able to kind of shift around where those units go. I mean, changing units is huge. I mean, it's a huge endeavor to move all of that. I know on the page it probably doesn't look that big, but it's big.
I think I need more information on that piece, the intervention piece. So
Right.
I heard you say after school, and that raises concerns for me in terms of feasibility and equity. But then thinking within the school day, as you mentioned, Carla only can take so many students, and it's during Rams block. So just thinking through if this plan were to move forward, when does that intervention happen? What are the resources that you have or need to make that happen? How many students, based on your IXL data, would you be looking at? Kind of more information on that piece would be helpful.
And I think that we would want to do for next year, and we've already talked to Principal Manning about this as well, that we would want to do not just interventions, but also enrichment opportunities to expand to cover, some of those things that we know that kids are going to need because they just haven't been exposed yet, but that they can pick up quickly. So that's where that beginning of the year assessment for all students will be helpful in all grade levels. So yes, the problem is that there's only really one block of time during the day to be able to do that. It's
Right.
that Rams block, and it is, how many minutes? 30.
30 minutes.
35.
Yeah. That, so that has limitations, which is why, you could potentially offer some kids to have enrichment opportunities, say, during Rams block or after school if there were some people, you don't want to close doors, but we can only fit so much into it. The day is not that long,
But Cynthia, I think what you're saying is keep 8 the way it is. Introduces Algebra 1 to avoid disruption to.
Well, I'm just
No, that's not
trying-
keeping 8 the way it is.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, but if we're being able, the whole point is to be able to offer a full Algebra 1.
Yep.
And that may just mean that not as many students are able to take that full Algebra 1 in the first iteration year. But in subsequent years, there should be more of them if we're able to reorganize the standards. Does that am I making sense?
No,
Is
you're
that
making
not-
you're making complete sense, but
Okay.
which is weird for me to say. But
Yeah, it sure is.
Maybe she should sit there every time.
But
know, right?
no, this is too close. But the
Sorry, Don.
but the it almost seems like if you were going to do that though, because I don't like pushing everybody up into what is now the accelerated.
No, I don't think that they will. That's my point.
So it almost seems like we need.
And we can still stay with Math 8. Again, we
can still stay with, that's the whole point. We can
So we
still
stay
stay with
with
Math
current
8, but we're able to allow for those students who are ready to move into them and offer that algebra, and then it kind of isolates.
Or we do 3 for at least a period.
Well, I don't know. What does that make sense to you?
Let's listen to the teachers.
We had 3 before.
Accelerated is.
We're not, but also like middle school's doing pretty well, right?
I want to just add.
I'm concerned about breaking something that doesn't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
But are the kids exiting middle school necessarily? How are they performing in high school, and how has that changed? That was what I was trying to get to with the MCAS. Looking at the comparative MCAS data, is there? And I haven't done any surveys of high school math teachers, but has there been a change in where kids are at.
In
as
the
they-
number of, what classes they're taking versus.
Or how they're performing in high school math classes. Are they?
I think it's, well, I'm
There's-
not sure. I think it's hard to say because, COVID interrupted
Yeah,
so
I
much
think
of
with this
the grouping of kids that are right now,
It's a little bit difficult.
it is hard to distill
because,
that.
My own kids were in 6th and 7th grade
Yeah.
during COVID, so they've doubled up on math.
Yep. Mine are not
They've
happy
taken
about it.
2 years each.
Yep.
Until junior year at least.
Yeah, we don't have the ability to do that in
So-
middle school or the high school.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
some of the kids
The
are
high
taking,
school, yeah.
and I also, for students that may not like math that well, now we're making them take
Yes.
2 years worth
That's
of math.
exactly
It
what's
seems like a
happening. And we're
punishment for
taking,
some.
so here's the, just a,
In
for
1 year,
example, we have broken up Algebra 1 in 9th grade.
To 2 years
for-
worth, yeah.
It's the full year. It's part 1 and part 2. And so we're then asking students to take what we do in high school, part 1 and part 2, and moving that down to the middle school?
And that is a
That
concern I've
just
had.
sounds crazy to me.
But I'm just still.
I mean, I understand, I'm just talking about this, in this current iteration of where we are, because we have to scaffold to get to it. So, because if I'm sitting here looking at my own sophomore who is not at that point either, because he's taking 2 years each year. So he's taking part 1, part 2, part 1, part 2. And only in junior year will he have an opportunity to say, I'm going to try honors algebra 2. Do you get what I'm saying?
We
And
know
not
there's
have to take it the whole year.
developmental,
Right, but-
where kids come too.
Right, but there were a lot of deficits, I think,
It
in that
begs
time.
questions, right? If we feel that it's realistic to do Algebra 1 a full year in grade 8 and get kids to be successful, then why
Why are we
can't we do
taking a
that in
full
grade
year?
9?
That's what I'm saying. Why are we taking a full year to do that in the high school? I don't know. I mean,
Okay, so let's we just kind of come up with an ask so we can.
So what's the current 8th grade breakdown, percent of students, nothing scientific, in regular math versus accelerated today's, if you were,
The numbers, I don't know.
What do you mean
I have to
that?
look.
Just the number?
because I'm just thinking about how do we disrupt, like, we do have a blue
Is it
ribbon.
about
school.
40% that are in the accelerated?
It's four, usually 3 to 4 sections of the, 2 to 4 sections out of the 10 sections.
Yeah.
Okay, so 40% of
so 40%.
students
Okay.
roughly.
I know
So it's
math.
about half and half.
Okay.
If we bring accelerated to, we're impacting everyone with the proposal here, right? Because everyone, the regular math now will go through accelerated basically, and then you have algebra 1.
Most of what we do impacts everyone, but yeah.
Not necessarily, because if we keep Math 8 the way it is, those students that would go through Math 8 anyway would go through Math 8, and then Algebra 1 would exist for,
But the issue, but there are going to be kids that are going to be able to run faster than Math 8, but not quite get, still not be able to sort of bridge the
but
gap.
that's not everyone.
But
That's
we
why
don't-
there's an accelerated math
Right,
today.
but so what I'm saying is as we progress, that it may be in our interest to do 3.
I get what you're saying, yes.
And maybe you end up with 1 or 2 sections of Algebra 1.
What do we call it, intermediate then, or accelerated intermediate?
Okay, I
I
mean,
mean, we don't need to worry about the
no one
how
here
we
except for
name
Hillary
it.
is an educator.
Can I just add
I'm just
one
gonna say-
caveat here? What we have seen that has improved as well, as well as being a National Blue Ribbon school, is our mental health data is improving as well. So, I mean, I think we need to take all of those factors into consideration because when we add more constraints and it is tracking, so when you have a small number of kids, you are definitely tracking, and you're going to be tracking more if you go that model. Will that affect those things? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I'm
Well,
just saying
mental health should, coming out of COVID, there was a deep decline in mental health.
But our data was better than some of the surrounding districts recently.
So I guess what I would like to see for next time, at least to continue on with this, is just to see the standards broken down as we teach them now from in 6th grade, 7th grade, and we have the 2 8th grade classes.
Right.
Then what the
So
proposal is
what's
for sort of next
realistic
year.
For students to be able to do.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that all students are going to be able to take Algebra 1. It means that we have an opportunity for students to take Algebra 1. That's what we asked for.
And that was what we had. Yes.
So if that's, and that doesn't, what constitutes a full Algebra 1 versus Algebra 1, enough standards to be able to get to Algebra 2?
Well, there's got to be a DESI standard for Algebra 1.
That's not what
The one on the right, the
one on
blue,
the
all
right
the all
is
blue
the-
is the additional 4 standards.
So that's a full year of
That's a
Algebra
full
1?
year, yeah.
Yes.
Per DESI, okay.
Which is a shorter list, but doesn't mean it's.
Well, so-
That's why
I
you
know.
cannot look at the number of bullets, right?
It's, yeah, don't look at the number of the list.
The
It's
dark
still a lot.
blue, though, you
Yeah.
could look at on the right-hand side
Yeah.
of the high school doing in algebra classes.
Right, and then, but then you're gonna
Classes.
move.
So in Algebra 2, they're doing the dark blue?
You could do that.
In Algebra 2?
No, what are they doing now in Algebra 2? Sorry, Algebra 1, Part 2.
So that's why, because the grade 8 currently is only doing the blue standards on the below, right? They're not
Right.
doing those 4. That's why they're doing a double Algebra 1 in the freshman year.
But there's still some kids that go from our current accelerated Math 8 algebra, which had some algebra standards, they're still going into Honors Algebra 1, Part 1 in high school, right?
Part 2.
Part 2.
They go right
Yeah,
to Part 2?
Some go to Part 1, some go to Part 2.
No, so some go to Part 1, some do the,
It depends on their level.
We have 6 sections of part 2.
that's 7.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking we'd have 6 or 7.
Anyway, yeah.
We had 2 honors and then I think 4 CP.
But my point is, we have kids in the accelerated in math in 8th grade now that are going into Algebra 1, Part 1. No, they're going to Algebra 1, Part 1.
Yeah, and some that are going to Part 2.
So I guess as part of this,
That's like a pathway.
right, so I guess as part of this, I'd also like to understand what is Algebra 1, Part 1 and what is Algebra 1, Part 2 by standard in high school.
Yes, but also, if I complete Algebra 1 with flying colors in 8th grade, I would. Thank you, Dan. If I did, though, like I made it through, not even flying colors, the expectation would I'd go to geometry.
Correct.
Okay.
If you
Because I
finished
don't-
Algebra 1 in 8th grade,
Yeah.
you would go to geometry in 8th
Got it.
grade, yes.
But today, that makes it, well, they could still go to,
They could still do it if they did Part 2, Algebra 1, Part 2, in 9th grade the first semester, and the
Yep.
second semester they could take geometry.
fair.
If they
okay.
wanted to take
Yep.
math the
I see.
entire year.
Well, then,
'Cause
with
who
the
wouldn't?
new schedule, though, how would that
All
work?
math every day, huh?
How would that work with the new schedule? They would do half a year still, yeah, they would still do half.
Yeah, yeah, we'd still work.
And as Dan
Still
said, you do have kids at every pathway that continue up with the pathway or stay the same, depending on how they perform. Sometimes they get into the higher level course and it's overwhelming. And so you have students who might be in algebra in 8th grade and they can continue with algebra in 9th grade.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, I've definitely.
Okay,
Not
so-
everyone's the same.
So again, what are we asking for next time?
I would like to see, so this is really helpful, it's great to finally see it. I agree with Dan, I think let's look at
We need better
today's
color coding.
6th and 7th,
There needs
and
to
then a
be purple
proposal of
and
what we would
orange
add in
darker.
to see what I would be missing in Algebra 1 that I wouldn't be getting in 6th or 7th now if we add extra material
I
there.
just want to remind you, though, this is work that we need to do with the teachers, and they're not here next week, so that's a really
Okay.
tight window.
So
for
we
us
would
to-
have to,
And that's part of the work that they were going to be doing, depending on what the decision was, because
Okay.
we need a decision to know
So
what.
this is your proposal, but your proviso is that there are some identified gaps that you're
Yes.
still trying to work out.
Yes.
Can we ask you to talk with them about a plan to address those gaps as they move forward? Yes, I'm sure you do, but I just, I think we still want to move forward with the proposal because it gives us the Algebra 1 that we've all asked for, right? It says Algebra 1 right there.
I still am concerned though with the
Does
new
it
math
not?
aid and algebra. The new, we're assuming they're all ready for it and
They're not all going to
they're
be
not.
ready for it.
But there's no other
I know that.
option for them to take then. They're only stuck in that. I'm sorry.
They can take
No, they're in
math 8.
Math 8.
I know you're getting to 3. I know you're getting.
No, Frank, they're in math, they can take Math 8 slash algebra or Algebra 1.
Well, if it's
No, I
this
get that. I'm
proposal,
saying those today.
or we could do regular math 8.
Or you
Right.
add, yes.
Yeah, I don't think
do regular
the
math.
accelerating everybody is the right way to go.
So what you're saying is
Yeah.
that we do the one that's in the current Math 8 for next year?
We're doing all 3 of
And
them
do
next year.
Algebra 1?
No, we're doing
Yes.
all, either.
My
This one?
I'd say Matt, this column, these 2 columns,
Plus.
and
Yeah.
Algebra 1.
Basically, you're eliminating the
Yes.
copy.
Yes, that's 3.
Is that realistic?
I don't know, we can do
If you
that.
want to
I don't think that's-
not look at the equity issues that we already unearthed.
I want to address the issue.
If that was just for like 1 year to make sure that we were.
Right, no, I'm not saying this is a permanent
It's
solution.
really hard to do that to the teachers.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you go to this.
It's a bandwidth issue.
They're learning a new
It's
math
so much,
curriculum
I know.
resource.
Each
Could
one of
we-
these standards is a lot.
So, okay, so let's look at this, instead of having 3, the Math 8 algebra, instead of just copying and pasting our accelerated course today, having the teachers revisit, what do we feel comfortable possibly cutting out? So it's not as accelerated.
No, we don't want to cut out.
But
Nope, don't worry. All right. Here for this. Can we go back? Can we go back to the teachers and have it and see what
Yeah,
the teachers
let's
want?
go back to
and
what they-
It may not be able to do it for the 27th because everyone is off for the next week, but the following meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if we're looking at,
I would really like to see the thoughts behind what are you doing to get.
Yes.
the
Well, and that's the work.
seventh
Exactly.
graders
Where's the gap?
possibly would
How are
be
we going to address
eligible,
those
like,
gaps?
What are some thoughts on
Yep.
yeah,
getting
because
them ready?
if we're doing the regular Math 8 for the general population next year, if that's where we are agreeing, then we would still try to propose adding some more algebraic standards
Right.
into that with
Yes.
the work that we're doing with the teachers.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we're agreeing with what you're putting in here. We just want to understand the gap piece.
No.
No, I think,
Nope,
it needs,
I
I
wouldn't say
think the concept, yes, but not the final.
Okay, fine.
Curriculum.
We can talk about it on the 7th.
Okay.
It's a really long-winded way of, let's move on. Thank you.
Oh, calendars.
Oh, my favorite.
Did you prepare something for us?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I was gonna, but I decided not to.
All right. So I think at this
Look at
point,
it.
we can still look at things, but can we vote the first day of school?
Yes. Well, but if we don't.
We're not in a position to make a significant change for next year.
Looks ugly. So,
This year looks ugly, and now and it's
snow day.
only yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so there's the December, the winter break, where we're gonna expect people to come back on the Friday, the 2nd.
Yeah.
We're gonna have nobody here.
Well, and we didn't this year have the 22nd because we didn't want to open school for a day of the week. So I'm just right. I don't know. I'm saying that is.
Did I?
But I don't want to go.
This is where I think the teachers might not like me. Did we put
There may reason.
the 2nd?
You talking about getting rid of February vacation?
No. The 2nd, because it's going to be hard. It's hard for everyone to come back. So
They're not gonna come back. They won't be here.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But could we move then PD date to the 2nd?
Teachers won't be here that day either.
I get it, Hillary. I'm just saying.
Exactly. I'm like, they're just no one's gonna be.
No one's here. Okay. I don't know. I was just
They're
thinking
gone.
of how to minimize.
Yeah, I hear you, but
Piece,
we
but-
can't make it a PD day because the teachers aren't gonna be here either.
I try. I threw it
I
out
got
there.
the
Take it
feedback,
back.
overwhelmingly feedback. We changed it to a PD day in September. Help me out here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and they were like, I didn't like it. I wasn't concentrating. I was worried about
Okay.
getting my classroom ready. You know, that was the mindset.
I guess on that day,
So
though,
you
if
wanted
we-
to keep the PD day on the 12th?
on the 16th.
They didn't like it when, I forget when we had it.
Oh,
like
we used to have it like the
way
first,
early.
yeah, we used to have it the first week, so we
Right.
would have a longer,
Right, and they did not
Labor Day weekend.
appreciate that at all.
Okay, well, we did it forever, so just.
On the flip side, though, if we keep the 2nd the way it is, if we do a PD day, no one shows up. If we don't, no one shows up. So,
No, because then we spent money and time, no.
no one shows up anyway that day, is what I'm saying. So, it's
Can't put
basically.
it on, no.
So no one's giving people permission
If teachers show up,
Right.
No.
even if there's a school day.
Nice, ugly.
It's an awful day.
All right, well, can we just, I guess, let's just vote for the first day and still noodle it. Can we noodle it?
I'm happy to
Can we vote the
Have you
last
gotten
day?
more feedback?
Can I bring up something?
Yeah.
We are in a position that we're trying to secure people for next year.
Yeah.
And we need to know dates.
for PD, because that's
I know, but like,
the longer we wait, the more we lose people.
Yes.
So with the schedule, there's no snow days, right? There's no possible.
Well, technically, the last day is 5 days later than what we're showing,
26th,
but
right,
yeah. But
the
As it is,
26th
we're already
would be-
coming in.
I don't know, it's a weird thing. You technically build in 5 snow days, but you don't actually talk about them.
Yeah, because the end of the school year is the 18th, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
And then 5 school day, snow emergency, yeah.
Right.
But if we hit one, then they're coming in Monday. The
I know, it's
22nd.
bogus.
They're coming in Monday, the
We're already
23rd
doing it
right now,
now.
because we're ending on the 20th this year, and
Yep.
we had a snow day.
Yep. Yeah. Nobody will be here, again.
I do want to, I mean, I know
And what are
that,
we arguing? Like, it's like, it is what it is.
and staff did, some staff members had asked about this, and I told them that I would share.
Yeah, what'd they say?
That there were some staff asking me, well, why can't we survey and find out about interest in just looking if people would do just the federal holidays and remove them. Again, but there is an impact of that it's not.
You mean remove all the holidays and just put federal holidays? Is that what
I
we're
think
talking
that's,
about?
yeah, I think that was
Yeah,
the.
but not for next year. We got to vote on this like soon.
Why? We're
would
doing
be-
it.
it would be
To
challenging
pilot it
to
for
do
one
for
year.
next year.
I think we need to give a heads
You
up.
just want to blow things up on your way out the door.
The community needs to have a heads up on this. And
Just
input.
pilot. I keep talking about pilot. Nobody cares.
We have a 25-year pilot in our contract. That's,
I know
I'm
it's not a
pilots.
pilot anymore. Okay.
So we can move all the puzzle pieces. There's no idea.
Okay.
What if we don't move the April break, but we take days
When
off?
were we
in
moving the
February?
April break?
We weren't. I just was. Remember when I was talking about doing the March break instead? I'm just revisiting. Let's forget the
To be
March
clear, we're not
break
moving the April break.
situation. But we get rid of February break and we just make it like a long weekend.
We did a survey on that last year, and it was
Everything's always not
People will not
conclusive,
come
but
in
people
for those
don't know what
two
they.
No, that was
they
pretty
haven't
conclusive.
enjoyed the being able to get out earlier in June.
The issue, I
Ever.
think, is daycare too, though, if none of the surrounding, we have a lot of teachers that are in surrounding districts.
And
It
you
was like
also have
60-40,
people
and
that
that's
have booked
conclusive.
vacations for next
Really
February already.
What?
Yeah, are we
So-
sending kids on a trip there, or is that April?
That's April. They're not going in February anywhere.
There are a lot of our staff members that
need to
do
go.
that. book
You mean they're already planning vacations already? We haven't even confirmed the calendar. How dare they?
Well, that's why I think.
Speaking of you, Suzanne,
Who, what?
she knows who she is. It's fine.
You're now talking to air. There's nobody over there.
No, she's watching.
Just for anyone watching,
She's
there's
watching.
nobody over there.
She's
And she's,
gonna text me that she's watching.
all right, so
I don't.
I'd like to entertain a motion to set the first day of school to be August 26th.
I'm in.
Is it after 10?
So
It
moved.
feels like it's after 10.
All right, Frank,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sarah.
What did we say? First day of school or
26.
first teacher day?
Nope. First day. Of
I thought
school.
first teacher day was the opening
No,
day?
25th
Was the
is the
25th?
First day of school.
Oh,
Okay.
for school for students.
For students.
Thank you. The 26th, yes,
Yes.
I agree with that.
And then 25th would be the staff opening day. Okay, so Cynthia,
We said yes. Did we all say yes?
you haven't said yes yet.
I said yes.
Okay. Dawn, yeah. Okay.
Dawn was like,
and I'm a
everybody
yes
shut
too.
up,
So
I already
we
said.
have a start. I understand the PD stuff. I think that as of now, we just go forward with the sort of the PD that we have, and if Cynthia comes up with any more, great ideas,
I have lots of great ideas.
ones that
So,
work.
I'm sorry, we're going with the PD days?
Yes.
Okay.
Start planning.
All right.
If we can think about a way not to be open on the second, but not to do it, I mean, like that does seem a little funky. But anyway, let's move
Do we
on.
have to do a March PD day?
We're not giving up a PD day.
No, just move it.
Okay, so
Just later part of the year.
moving on to new business, we had on our agenda to find people for the town's policy advisory committee. We didn't find anybody, but the town has found someone for us who some of us may know, which I think. So I think it's a great. I'm glad that she applied. So I'd entertain a motion to appoint Ms. Joan Shaughnessy as one of our two. The other one would be vacant for now anyway. Representatives to the town's policy advisory committee.
Moved by Sarah.
Second.
All right, Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Abstain. I don't know Joan.
Okay. She's great. Sarah?
She used to be a former school committee member.
Cynthia?
For like 6 years. Yes, enthusiastically.
Dawn?
Yeah.
And I am also enthusiastic, yes, just to mimic Cynthia. Okay, so that's 6-0 with one abstention.
You guys need to sit together more often.
We really do not. Okay, so I sent around the joint letter with the select board. I believe they've already sort of approved that, so we don't really have a say, but basically this is just an advocacy letter for more money. and more things.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the joint letter with the select board to our state representatives.
So moved.
Second?
I'm sorry, Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you.
Can I just add the February 28th legislative breakfast that I'm hosting?
Yes.
You are-
I'm going to go. I need to sign up
Okay,
for it. Yep.
just wanted to-
Yep. I gotta put that on my calendar. It's coming up. Okay, do we have the accelerated roof? Do you just want us to kind of vote to basically say, let's do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not at this point, there aren't too many layers to it. I did, in your folder is kind of a resource page, which includes
Yeah.
the Rams roof SOI application in its kind of current iteration, the Miller roof SOI application for this year, which the Placentino will be identical. Yes, the MSBA wants 2 applications for the same building.
Yeah.
The main thing, if you're really trying to, if you're questioning, is there the need, the best resource to go to would probably be in the supporting documentation, the Rams and Miller Placentino roof audit. And then if you want another layer of convincing, I would go to the infrared survey, which shows this kind of the various kind of flood damage and water damage that's throughout. And then for your reference as a school committee, if you're wanting what's kind of the past voting structure last year, I've got copies of the 24 letters from the select board and the school committee, and then also just kind of what the voting template is.
Right, so.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that I'm looking at the voting template right now because it's very prescriptive and we need to follow it to the T. So
Yeah.
maybe we just vote to sort of say we want to go forward and then next time we actually vote the prescriptive. But do you have it
I
written?
think that's from the same as last year.
Yeah.
That's
Is
But nobody's got dates in it and I don't know.
Is this separate from the SOI for the high school?
Yeah, we're not doing that right this second.
I just want to make sure that we are still doing that.
We are still doing
We're
that.
just not doing it today.
That is not on the board.
Okay.
Right.
I just want to make sure.
Oh, you went, so let's see here.
This is just for accelerated repair.
Let's just see here. All right.
Yeah, you have to read their
Yeah,
specific
so
language or something.
all it is asking for at this point is your vote of interest to do this as a committee. It then goes to the select board to do a similar vote.
Right.
Once I have a vote, which is then in the form of a letter from Dan and then a letter from likely somebody on the select board. Once I have all that in the completed packet, it then goes to signatures to Dan and Susan and to the select board, that they get another pass at the application to make sure that it all checks off. They sign their signatures and then it comes back to us to send off.
Right, but they publicly have to read.
They have to
this.
read a
That's-
statement, yeah.
So it would be the date, today's date, and then this date that he believes he'll be.
Okay, so when do you want to set the date that you're going to submit it?
So the due date is March 21st.
Okay, so we'll do that. All right. Having convened in an open meeting on February 13th, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Holliston, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinance, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated March 21st, 2025, for the Robert H. Adams Middle School located at 323 Woodland Street, Holliston, Mass. 01746, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which the application may be submitted for the Massachusetts Building Authority in the future, and its priority area number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, specifically restoration of the Robert H. Adams Middle School roof. And hereby further specifically acknowledge that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance, they prove that, or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Holliston to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Do I hear a motion?
Moved by Cynthia.
Second.
Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Okay, so now I get to read this again. What is the address of Placentino Miller?
It is
235.
Yeah, 235
To the-
Woodland Street.
To the right, and do we want to call, what do I want, just the Placentino Miller School?
no, yeah.
Yep.
Placentino
Do
Miller.
both.
Um,
Do you just say
No,
both
it's going to
of
be one
them separately?
application, because it's the
Okay.
same
It
roof.
is- So
No, I know, but
I
it
guess
says here,
technically
too.
we should read it
Twice.
twice, once for Placentino,
And
once
once for
for Miller.
Miller.
We have to, we submit the
two
same
separate.
application twice
Yeah.
for each.
When you go in,
I
they
know.
have a
I
Miller
know,
link
so I
and
was
a
reading it, I was like,
Placentino.
come on.
Yeah, and so I have to,
Yep.
I have to load a form.
So we're 3.
Because it's technically two different buildings.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. I asked MSBA, that's what
Do you
they.
need some water? I don't know.
Having convened in an open meeting on February 13th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Holliston, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the MSBA the statement of interest form dated March 21st, 2025, for the Placentino Elementary School located 325 Woodland Street, Holliston, Mass. 01746, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority area number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facilities such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in the school facility, specifically restoration of the Placentino Elementary School roof. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any further funding, any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Holliston to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Moved by Cynthia.
Second.
Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay. Having convened an open meeting on February 13th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Holliston, in accordance with the charters, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest form dated March 21st, 2025, for the Miller Elementary School located at 325 Woodland Street, Holliston, Mass. 01746, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority area number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, window boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, specifically restoration of the Miller Elementary School roof. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance of or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Holliston to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Moved by Cynthia. Sorry. I slept on the job there.
Second.
Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah? Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay. Do we want to do another one just for...
Save
No
for
more
the next
Wait a
meeting.
couple months and you get the high school.
Yeah, save for the next meeting.
No more.
Okay, I won't be that fast. Okay, so we've got some communication subcommittee minutes. We've also got some budget minutes, budget committee meeting minutes. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 27th, 2025. I hope everyone has a good break. We do have reason to continue our executive session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session from which we will not return to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And this is related to the HFT and the High School Schedule Committee.
So moved.
Second. I'm sorry. Hillary second.
All right. Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes. Begrudging.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Thank you and good night.